a man took the hunter qualification exam and stunned even the world's top S-rank elites, all because a single punch from him obliterated a level 50 monster. The sight shook even the commander-in-chief of the Hunter Command. He had to be recruited. No conditions, no negotiations. What they didn't know was that this man, known as Choi Lu Dao, had been trapped in the abyss for a full 500 years. For 5 centuries, every meal he ate came from beasts he hunted with his own hands. As the monsters he slew grew stronger, his own power rose relentlessly through endless combat. By his 50th year in the abyss, low-tier monsters posed no threat at all. By the 300th year, even high-tier abyssal beasts couldn't withstand a single punch. By the 400th year, he could no longer remember what his family looked like. All that remained were endless battles and scars beyond counting. In the 500th year, he finally became the strongest king of the abyss. No monster there dared to challenge him again. Yet even at the peak, he still couldn't find a way back. Because once, he too had a happy family. But at some unknown point, he began having the same dream every single day. In that dream stood a floating island shrouded in mist. Ruined Western-style buildings rose upon it, as if life had never existed there. Yet within one of the ruins, he saw the figure of a human. That person seemed to have been waiting for him all along. "Come, child. I'll be waiting for you at the edge of the abyss." Every time the dream reached that point, Choi Lu Dao would jolt awake. The dream haunted him for a long time, yet he never mentioned it to anyone. He simply assumed it was the result of mounting academic pressure, nothing more than a mental strain. Behind him, his father patted him on the head and said, "What's with you lately? You've been completely spaced out. Hurry up and get ready for school." After washing up, he sat down and had breakfast with his family. His dream was to join the self-defense forces after graduation. When that day came, he knew the time he spent with his parents would only grow scarcer. What he never expected was that, on this very day, a massive shadow would descend upon the entire world. That shadow came from a towering structure that had appeared out of thin air, something he knew nothing about at the time. Before long, the emergence of that tower would completely alter the course of human history. From the very first day it appeared, they received a call from his older brother, who told them not to worry and assured them he was safe. Even so, the voice on the other end of the line was faint, unnervingly weak. That day, his family lost all contact with his brother, and they all understood what that likely meant. At first, the news insisted that as long as people stayed indoors, they would remain safe. But as time passed, more than 20 such towers began appearing across the world. Before long, even the news broadcasts fell silent, and information from the outside could no longer reach them. Soon after, the government issued an evacuation order, instructing everyone to pack their belongings and move to designated safe zones. Before leaving, his mother wrote a letter to his brother. "If you ever come back, you must come find us." After that, the family began their flight from home. Along the way, he witnessed countless scenes that left a deep mark on him. He saw despair etched clearly across the faces of soldiers. Their armored vehicles were covered in terrifying claw marks. Before long, they arrived at a temporary shelter where the silence felt suffocating. Everyone there seemed to be waiting for death itself, their eyes completely devoid of any desire to live. At that moment, an argument broke out inside the shelter as a grown man tried to snatch a piece of bread from a child. He sneered and said, "The kid's young. Missing a few meals won't kill him, right? Giving that bread to me shouldn't be a problem." The child couldn't withstand the threat and hesitated, nearly handing the bread over. That was when his father, who had always hated injustice, finally stepped in. "You know what situation we're in. Why would you do something like this?" The man clearly didn't take him seriously at all. "You old geezer," he scoffed. "Worry about yourself first." His father's gaze turned cold. "Return the bread to the child." The man burst out laughing and threw a punch straight at his father. But in the next instant, his father landed a swift kick, knocking him flat to the ground. He then returned the bread to the boy, completely ignoring the man lying there. His father merely shot him a single glance. The bread thief immediately fell silent, not daring to say another word. As he left, he spat out a threat. "I'll remember this." I recognized the man my father had just beaten. He was my classmate. Back in school, he had bullied me almost every single day. There were countless times when I wished I could personally kill that piece of trash. Just then, a sergeant rushed into the shelter, panic written all over his face. He ordered everyone to evacuate immediately and board one of the trucks outside. A few self-righteous people demanded to know why. The soldier clearly had no authority to explain. "Just do as you're told," he said flatly. "You don't need to know anything else." As the arguments continued, a massive disturbance suddenly erupted outside the shelter doors. The soldier shouted at the top of his lungs, "Run! Don't worry about anything else." Seeing this, Choi Lu-dao urgently urged his parents to leave at once. A powerful sense of dread had been gnawing at him from the very beginning. At that moment, the shelter doors were smashed open, and several white-haired monsters burst inside. The people who had been shouting just moments ago now scattered in blind panic. These creatures were unlike anything they had ever seen before. Anyone could tell how dangerous they were. The sight left him utterly shaken. When the world was happening? Before long, everyone was desperately scrambling onto the trucks outside. He pushed his parents toward one of them. "Get on first. I'll see if there's another truck with space." With that, he turned and sprinted in another direction. But that truck was already packed to the brim, leaving no room for him. Soon, however, he spotted another truck that was nearly empty. He leapt forward and vaulted onto the back of it. Just then, a large hand suddenly reached out and grabbed him. He instinctively muttered a quick thanks. The man's lips curled into a sinister grin. "Don't you think it's a little early to be thanking me?" A chill ran straight through him. Looking up, he froze. It was the same man his father had beaten earlier. Why did it have to be him? In the next instant, the man shoved him off the truck without hesitation. At that moment, he felt as if everything was over. His life, his dreams, all of it. Countless feet trampled over his body as people fled. He didn't want to die. In his heart, he desperately wished that someone, anyone, would save him. When he opened his eyes again, a crystal-clear foot appeared before him. Raising his gaze, he saw the figure from his dreams, the old man. Once more, the old man spoke the same words he had heard in those dreams. "I will be waiting for you at the edge of the abyss." In the next instant, the scenery shifted and everyone around Choi Lu-dao vanished. Just then, something sharp slammed into the ground right beside him. He looked up to see a goblin launching an attack at him. The sight left him frozen for a split second before he instinctively turned to run. But the experiences of the past few days had already pushed the anger in his heart to its breaking point. The tower that had appeared out of nowhere, the bastard who shoved him off the truck, the mysterious old man, and now this goblin attacking him. He knew he had to fight back, or he would die here. In the next second, he grabbed a stone from the ground and charged straight at the goblin. "If you got the guts, then kill me. If you can't, then you're the one who's going to die." After a brutal struggle, he finally killed the goblin. He never imagined that something straight out of video game would appear in real life. And on its chest was a black number, likely indicating its level. Moments later, a black crystal emerged from the goblin's chest. He stood there, stunned, with no idea what to do. Yet the crystal seemed almost sentient as it flew straight toward him. In the blink of an eye, it shot into his body at lightning speed, leaving him no time to react. Once he calmed down, he realized his wounds were rapidly healing. At the same time, a surge of immense power erupted within him. It seemed that killing goblins and absorbing their crystals was how one grew stronger. Having figured that out, he picked up the goblin's weapon. On this island, there were surely many more monsters like it. He needed to hide first to avoid being ambushed. But after searching the area, he was shocked to find that no other monsters appeared besides that single goblin. Every strange sign and unanswered question ultimately pointed toward the door ahead. The island floated high in midair, with a set of steps descending along its edge. He leaned forward to look down, yet saw no monsters at all. Step by step, he began walking down the stairs. The scene felt strangely familiar, like a stage in a video game, where a skeleton might suddenly appear and shove him off. It was even possible that falling would simply reset him back to where he started. However, Choi Lu-dao had no intention of taking that risk. When he reached the end of the stairs, he found himself inside a room. It was different from what he had imagined. The walls looked incredibly ancient. Suddenly, a flame ignited within the room. Behind that flickering fire stood a door. He could make sense of it. Was he supposed to enter through that door? His gaze shifted to a stone tablet nearby. Although he had never seen such writing before, its meaning flowed directly into his mind. The inscription read, "The fragile fragments, along with everything their bearer possesses, shall grant me the right to leave this place." After reading those words, he smiled. To escape, all he had to do was gather every fragment. At least that meant there was still hope. Filled with renewed determination, he calmly reconsidered the earlier fight and realized that the monster hadn't actually been that strong. Holding on to that thought, he slowly pushed open the stone door. As it opened, a chilling aura washed over his entire body. The first layer of the abyss covered an area of roughly 900 square meters, and the number carved into the monster was 1. The second layer spanned 1,800 square meters, with one monster bearing the number 2. The third layer expanded to 3,600 square meters, where 1 out of 4 monsters carried the number 3. The fragments existed only within monsters marked by numbers. These fragments were the key to advancing to the next layer, and the larger the number, the greater the monster's strength. But as he climbed higher and higher, Choi Lu-dao's greatest concern finally came true. The keys became increasingly difficult to find. With each layer he passed, both the area and the number of monsters doubled. Within the abyss, he grew stronger with every monster he killed. Yet what surprised him was that his physical age barely changed at all. He no longer knew how much time had passed, perhaps 10 years, perhaps 100. All he knew was that he could now obliterate high-tier monsters with a single punch. As he continued ascending, the variety of monsters kept expanding as well. By the time he reached the 15th layer, the number of monsters on that floor alone had already exceeded 1 million. Even so, the overwhelming numbers did not crush him. Instead, he only grew more ferocious with every kill. Upon reaching the 30th layer, the monster count had surged to 500 million. At that point, searching for keys was like looking for a needle in the ocean. The monsters on each layer seemed to value the keys deeply, guarding them with extreme care. Some creatures, fully aware they were no match for him, chose to hide underground instead. But no matter where they hid, he would hunt them down and wipe them out. Even when he finally arrived at the 99th layer, he pressed forward with unwavering resolve. On that floor alone, the number of monsters had exploded to over 2 trillion. He laughed loudly. Since he still hadn't found the key to leave, he might as well slaughter to his heart's content. Supermassive dragons soaring through the skies were reduced to nothing but bleached bones in the blink of an eye. Choi Lu-dao didn't know whether time flowed the same here as it did on Earth, but he had already spent a full 500 years in the abyss. The walls were covered with countless marks he had carved into them over time. At this point, he was truly exhausted, so much so that he could no longer remember what his family even looked like. Even so, he had to get out. This was his only belief, even if his parents were already gone. Over those 5 centuries, he had grown unimaginably powerful, to the point where the abyss itself offered him almost no worthy opponents. Yet fate seemed to be playing a cruel joke on him. No matter how strong he became, he still couldn't find a way out. All that awaited him were endless islands with no end in sight. What he didn't know was that while he was trapped in the abyss, the outside world was undergoing drastic changes of its own. More than 20 towers appeared across the world, and before humanity could even begin to understand them, disaster struck. Countless monsters poured out from within the towers. They began slaughtering humanity without restraint, and that day came to be known as Judgment Day. A handful of survivors awakened and gained access to a mysterious system. As time passed, more and more awakened were granted overwhelming power. Humanity slowly rebuilt its civilization, and the awakened founded what became known as the Hunter Guild. Meanwhile, deep within the abyss, Choi Lu-dao was chasing a demonic wolf at full speed. As he ran, He shouted impatiently, "Stop running and let me check if you got a number on you." Just then, an iron chain suddenly bound the demonic wolf. Immediately after, he clearly heard a human voice. It just used a high-grade teleport scroll. "Stop it. Don't let the summoning finish." In the next instant, the demonic wolf was lifted into the air, wrapped in a massive force of teleportation. The sight left him stunned. Could that teleportation array above be the exit? Without hesitation, he kicked off the ground. After waiting so long, there was no way he would let this chance slip away. With a sharp whoosh, he leapt into the air, following the demonic wolf straight into the teleportation array. At that moment, a cold notification echoed from the abyss. Warning: the abyss cannot summon two life forms simultaneously. He cursed under his breath. He wouldn't let anyone block his path. He clung tightly to the demonic wolf ahead, determined not to be forced out first. At the same time, in the outside world, a woman was being surrounded by several hunters, all coveting the level 60 scroll in her hand. One of the hunters sneered, "Hand it over nicely, or I won't be holding back." The woman screamed in terror, "Player versus player combat is forbidden. You're violating the rules." The level 38 barbarian burst into laughter. "Rules exist to be broken, not to shackle us." As he spoke, he slammed his long blade upright in front of the woman, frightening her so badly that tears streamed down her face. The barbarian sneered viciously, "Hand over the scroll, and I might let you leave with all your limbs intact." The woman clenched the scroll behind her tightly. "If you're going to treat me like this," she said through gritted teeth, "then I won't hold back either." The other hunters' faces instantly darkened. "She's forcing a summon. Stop her now." The barbarian abandoned all restraint, ready to unleash his full power and kill her outright to seize the scroll. In the next instant, a terrifying aura erupted from the woman as arcs of lightning coiled around her body. Just as the blade was about to cleave her head in two, she twisted aside at the last moment and completed the force summoning. Panic swept through the hunters. If a high-tier monster came out, no one here would be able to stop it. We're done for. A bolt of lightning suddenly shot out from the scroll. The woman screamed hysterically, "Then die with me. Even if I don't make it out alive, I'm taking you all down with me." High above, an enormous vortex began to form in the sky. A thunderbolt crashed down from within it, striking the summoning scroll and blasting every hunter backward with overwhelming force. Cold sweat poured down the barbarian's face. "This energy level is bad news for us. Retreat now." Moments later, a creature slowly emerged from the lightning. Everyone stared at the summoned being, barely daring to breathe. But once they saw it clearly, they froze in disbelief. It was nothing more than a level 3 hellhound. One hunter even tossed a bone at it, and they nearly burst out laughing. Even the woman was stunned. After risking her life to protect the scroll, it had summoned something this weak. Fate was playing a cruel joke on her. Then, in the very next second, a hand suddenly punched straight through the hellhound's body. With a slight exertion of strength, Choi Lu Dao tore the demonic wolf cleanly in half. The sight shattered the hunter's composure. This was a humanoid monster, something none of them had ever heard of before. The female summoner stood frozen in shock, clearly unable to process what she was seeing. Choi Lu Dao spoke slowly, emotion seeping into his voice. "I finally made it out. 500 years. That damned hell. Just thinking about it makes me sick." In the next instant, he threw his head back and roared, "I'm free. I finally escaped that place." The terrifying aura radiating from his body made the surrounding hunters tremble uncontrollably. Just hearing his laughter left their bodies stiff with fear. This level of power was likely far beyond even the nation's S-rank hunters. A female hunter stared at him blankly and asked in a trembling voice, What are you exactly? Why did you come out of the teleportation array?" At her question, Choi Lu Dao's laughter abruptly stopped. He took a single step forward and appeared right in front of her, his speed so great it left after images behind. What they didn't know was what he was thinking. After 500 years without seeing a single human, he actually felt a strange sense of familiarity toward them. He grabbed the woman by the shoulders and asked urgently, "Is this Earth?" She froze for a moment, then nodded. Yes, this was Earth. Upon hearing that, Choi Ludao burst out laughing once more. I'm finally back. He glanced at the people beside him, frowning slightly. Your outfits look kind of weird. Are you guys doing some sort of cosplay? The remark instantly darkened their expressions. In the next second, the two hunters lunged toward his back, attempting a sneak attack. But to their disbelief, Choi Ludao neither dodged nor retreated. He simply stood there and let their attacks land. The moment their weapons struck his body, they shattered on impact. His gaze turned icy, murderous intent leaking out. What do you two little brats think you're doing? When the barbarian met his eyes, he completely broke down. You monster! Where are you? In Choi Ludao's vision, the barbarian's figure began to blur and overlap. You dare call me a monster? You're asking to die. In the next instant, his mind wavered, and the barbarian before him was already indistinguishable from the monsters of the abyss. Choi Ludao grabbed the barbarian by the throat and slammed him in place. Against abyssal monsters, he had never shown mercy. He spoke slowly, his voice cold. Show me your number. I'm taking the crystal inside you. The barbarian was utterly confused and shouted in terror. What number are you talking about? We don't understand a single word you're saying. That shout snapped Choi Ludao back to reality. He had nearly killed the wrong person. He loosened his grip, and the barbarian collapsed to the ground in a heap. The man had completely lost control of himself. He had actually wet himself. The pressure radiating from Choi Ludao was simply too overwhelming. The barbarian even began to suspect that not even the nation's strongest S-rank hunters could stand against this man. Realizing they were no match for him, the group immediately thought of fleeing, but the barbarian's legs had gone so weak he could barely stand. Choi Ludao said flatly, "You four, get lost. I don't feel like killing right now. If you don't leave, I will." The group fled in panic, terror etched deep into their eyes. After they were gone, Choi Ludao turned his gaze toward the summoner. When the female summoner saw the scars crisscrossing his back, shock surged through her. Such power, coupled with those wounds, what kind of hell had this man endured? No matter who he was, one thing was certain. He was not a monster summoned from the abyss. She had never heard of a human being summoned that way. As she was lost in thought, Choi Ludao turned to her and asked, "Tell me, how long has this tower existed?" She froze for a moment, then answered confused, 5 years. Isn't that common knowledge? You couldn't possibly not know that. Choi Ludao found it hard to believe. He had spent 500 years in the abyss. If this truly was Earth, then what was that scroll? What was this so-called system? And why was she dressed like that? Too many questions made no sense to him. Afraid of provoking him again, the woman hurriedly explained. After the towers appeared, a system descended upon humanity. Before long, 1/3 of all cities had already fallen. She then showed him archived footage from the system. The 5th city had suffered 7 large-scale invasions, and she was one of the survivors who escaped from there. When Choi Ludao saw the information clearly, his heart lurched. It was F City, the place where he had been born. Panic surged through Choi Ludao. He grabbed the woman by the arm and demanded urgently, "What's the situation in F City right now?" She quickly explained, F City has already been reduced to ruins. Most areas have been destroyed, but high-level forces have been dispatched to support the area. They should eliminate the monsters soon. Hearing how dire it was, Choi Ludao couldn't stay any longer. "I'm going to F City immediately. Which route is the fastest?" The woman pointed in a direction, and at the very instant her finger moved, Choi Ludao's figure vanished like a bolt of lightning, so fast she couldn't even track him with her eyes. She stood there in a daze. That man was absolutely not a summoned beast. Summoned creatures couldn't act independently. She had to report what happened today to her sister. A mysterious man had actually emerged from a summoning array. It was unbelievable. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the barbarian, still shaken to the point of humiliation, had to be carried by 2 of his companions. But they hadn't gone far when a thick mass of black mist suddenly appeared ahead, blocking the path of all 4 of them. One of them forced himself to speak. Who goes there?" When the figure slowly turned around, their faces went pale. Today had to be cursed. Another killing intent-filled powerhouse had appeared. The man's aura was overwhelmingly terrifying. The black mist leaking from beneath his cloak alone made them tremble. The gap in strength was so vast that fighting was completely impossible. The oppressive pressure sent all four of their hearts racing. "I'm feeling merciful today," the cloaked figure said coldly. "You have 3 seconds. Tell me where he is. Remember, only 3 seconds." The barbarian was filled with rage and despair. What kind of day was this? One powerful figure after another kept appearing, and he didn't even know what to do anymore. In the very next moment, all four exploded into clouds of blood. The cloaked powerhouse merely waved his hand, effortlessly killing the hunters. "Your 3 seconds are up. You wasted your chance." Immediately after, several system notifications appeared. The four killed were all elite members of the Tiger Roar Guild. At the same time, at the headquarters of the Tiger Roar Guild, inside an elegantly furnished office, a woman reported calmly, "Several of our master-tier elites have lost all signs of life. The summoning scroll carried by that girl is also missing." Upon hearing this, the man seated behind the desk maintained a gentle expression, yet crushed the wine glass in his hand with his fingers. The woman knew. He was already furious. "The people you recommended couldn't even handle a level 19 summoner, and their signals vanished simultaneously," the man said coldly. "Tell me, how exactly did you do your job?" What truly concerned him was the timing. All four signals disappeared at the same moment, which meant only one thing: they had been instantly killed. But who in this world could accomplish something like that? The man before her was Richter, a storm priest level. He immediately issued an order. "Find out who interfered in this matter. If the opponent isn't strong, eliminate them on the spot." He then walked to the window, looking down below. "Anyone who dares touch my people will die." But soon, an unsettling sensation struck him. He thought he saw a white-haired, long-haired man flying through the sky. That shouldn't have been possible. The S-rank powerhouse's gaze turned dangerous. The overwhelming scent of blood was far too intense. Who was this person? It had to be investigated immediately. There could be no one in H country beyond his control. Yet when he noticed the direction that figure was heading, he frowned. "That's the Fallen Zone, isn't it? Why would anyone go there? Even suicide doesn't look like this." This invasion was clearly different in scale. Without a doubt, a powerful force was orchestrating it from behind the scenes. The tower that had slept for 5 full years had finally begun to move. He immediately ordered all search teams withdraw at once. Leave the area immediately. Any delay will result in catastrophic losses. Meanwhile, Choi Lu Dao had no idea how dangerous the direction he was heading truly was. His mind was focused on a single goal: reaching F City as fast as possible. 10 minutes later, he arrived at F City, only to be stunned by what he saw. He slowly descended onto a rooftop and looked down below. Countless monsters were flying freely through the sky, and the entire city had already been reduced to ruins. F City had clearly fallen. Choi Lu Dao had been trapped in the abyss for 500 years, yet only 10 years had passed in the outside world. That realization brought him a brief sense of relief. But the sight before him filled him with anxiety. This place had become a true hell, and he had no idea whether his parents were still alive. He had endured the abyss all those years for a single purpose: to return to Earth and reunite with his family. He had thought that goal was within reach, only to be met with a cruel reality. The once weak boy had long since become a ruler of the abyss. Within that world, no monster dared attack Choi Lu Dao anymore. Only he hunted them down. After more than 200 years had passed, despair nearly consumed him. In his mind, there was no way his parents could still be alive after so long. Day after day, he survived by eating the internal organs of monsters, forcing himself to swallow food he had long since grown numb to. Yet whenever thoughts of his family surfaced, he would silently swear to himself, whether his parents were alive or not, he had to return at least once. It was an obsession he could never let go of. At that moment, an overconfident bat monster charged straight at him, and he instinctively prepared to strike. In the next instant, the creature was blasted away. Such a low-level monster couldn't even withstand the pressure of his natural aura before dying. The good news now was this: 500 years in the abyss amounted to only 5 years on Earth. That meant his parents and his older brother might still be alive. He could only hope they would hold on until he arrived. Before long, Choi Lu-dao reached the neighborhood where he once lived. The lively scenes of the past were gone, replaced by buildings shattered like the aftermath of a massive earthquake. Yet there were no signs of monsters slaughtering people here. It seemed the creatures only targeted areas with large populations. Soon, he stood before the door of his old home. His heart pounded violently, tension filling his eyes. After all these years, there was no way he could open this door calmly. With a sharp crack, he accidentally tore the door right off its hinges, though that also had much to do with how badly damaged it already was. Choi Lu-dao slowly walked into the room that had once been his. Sunlight fell across his body, and as he stepped inside, his tall figure looked unbearably lonely and desolate. He carefully searched the room and, as expected, found no one there. In truth, he had known from the start that no one would be here. But he still came, because this place was filled with his happiest memories. Still, he made an unexpected discovery. On the table lay a single note. He picked it up, sat down beside the table, and read it slowly. It said, "Dear son, everyone says you're dead, but your mother and father have never believed that. We packed up your things and arranged this room exactly as it was before. We believe, without a doubt, that you will come back. You must come find us. We even prepared clothes for you, from size S all the way to L. They're all your favorites to be by the time he reached this part." Tears were streaming down Choi Lu-dao's face. He never imagined that his parents would risk their lives to return here just to leave this letter for him. Following the instructions his mother left behind, he opened the wardrobe in his room and found several neatly arranged sets of clothing inside. In addition to that, his mother had left him a map leading to shelter number 6, along with a family photograph. Choi Lu-dao didn't know what kind of faith had allowed his mother to believe so firmly that he would return. But this time, she had been right. Clutching the photo album, he broke down in tears. 500 years had passed. After 200 years in the abyss, he had already forgotten what his family looked like. But the moment he saw that photo, every memory came flooding back. Soon after, he found a dagger inside the house. Reflected in its blade were his own eyes. At this point, he didn't even know how powerful he truly was. If he could suppress every monster in the world, could he truly bring an end to this apocalypse? Using the dagger he found, he slowly cut away his long hair. Then he changed into clean clothes. In just a few minutes, it was as if he had become a different person. Perhaps the time he had lost could never be reclaimed, but it had only been 5 years. He could still afford to wait. The strands of hair falling to the ground were like his severed past, and a new life was waiting for him to begin again. By now, Choi Lu-dao had completely shed his former ragged appearance and become a sharp, clean-cut young man. Aside from the scar on his face, he looked undeniably handsome. His destination was clear: shelter number 6, where his parents had gone. Heading east, he followed the markings on the map straight toward it. The land along the way had already turned into ruins, making the original roads impossible to use. But something like this was hardly a problem for him. Back in the abyss, he had traversed far stranger and deadlier terrain. If the old paths were gone, he would simply carve out his own. In the next moment, Choi Lu-dao kicked off the ground and launched himself into the air. In his mind, this method would get him to shelter number 6 even faster. Suddenly, a massive bird-like monster locked onto him, its razor-sharp talons tearing through the air as it lunged forward. What it didn't expect was that Choi Lu-dao casually grabbed it mid-attack and tore its body clean in half. A low-level monster daring to block his way? Pure suicide. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He sprinted across the ruined buildings at extreme speed, crushing structures beneath his feet with every step. His velocity had reached its absolute limit. Nearby, 2 young men were drinking together. One of them thought he heard a loud noise, but his companion dismissed it, saying he was probably just drunk. Standing guard out here was boring enough. There was no way anything was actually happening. The next second, both of them froze in shock. Something like a bolt of lightning roared over their heads. They couldn't even tell what it was, let alone see a human figure. The man on the left pointed upward, stammering, "Bro, did you see that just now?" The other saw nothing at all, only felt a violent gust of wind slap his face. Fortunately, another companion nearby had been recording video and captured the entire moment. His phone was surprisingly advanced, capable of slowing the footage down 300 times. When they reviewed it, they clearly saw that the figure in the sky was, unmistakably, a human flying through the air. As Choi Lu Dao continued racing towards shelter number 6, he suddenly heard a woman screaming below. In front of her stood several hunters. "Forgive us, we were just looking for food. Never thought we'd find survivors in this wasteland, especially a woman." The man in the lead was practically drooling. "Don't worry, we're good people." But that greedy look on his face made it obvious. No idiot would believe he was telling the truth. He claimed they wouldn't hurt her and would even take good care of her, but the girl was already paralyzed with fear, desperately hoping the hunters wouldn't come any closer. One of the hunters slammed her to the ground, speaking softly on purpose. "Don't be scared. We really don't mean any harm." Then he flashed a disgusting grin. "We'll be very gentle." At that moment, a sharp crack echoed behind them, the sound of the ground shattering underfoot. Some things never change. Choi Lu Dao stood behind them, murderous intent blazing his eyes as he stared straight at the three men. "You pieces of trash." The leader was startled by the sudden appearance and shouted aggressively, "Stop messing around. Who's there? Step out right now. If you dare interfere, don't expect to walk away unharmed." The moment the hunter finished speaking, the two figures behind him lunged forward at full speed. One wielded twin blades, while the other was clearly a knight, shield in one hand, sword in the other. He sneered, "Don't get cocky, white-haired brat." In the next instant, both of them closed in rapidly. Yet Choi Lu Dao remained completely calm, not even bothering to change his expression. His arm flicked slightly, and he slapped one of them square across the face. With a dull thud, the hunter was sent crashing to the ground, utterly defenseless. Choi Lu Dao sneered inwardly. Someone at this level didn't even warrant a serious move. Just then, the other hunter thrust his sword forward, but Choi Lu Dao simply sidestepped with ease. The attack was laughably slow to him. As the man overextended, Choi Lu Dao grabbed his arm. A surge of intense pain shot through it, draining all color from the hunter's face. With a slight squeeze of his palm, Choi Lu Dao forced the man downward. As the body dropped, his left knee slammed brutally into the man's face. Enraged and panicked, the hunter shouted, "Who the hell are you?" "I'm from a Tiger Roar guild. If you dare lay a finger on me, the guild will never let this go." What he didn't know was that Choi Lu Dao had just wiped out 4 elites from the Tiger Roar guild moments earlier. Choi Lu Dao spoke calmly, calling him by name, Suing Han. "Already forgotten me? It's only been 5 years." As he spoke, he brushed his white hair aside, revealing his face. "You were the one who personally ruined me back then. Have you really forgotten the face you murdered?" Suing Han's pupils shrank violently. His voice trembled. "That's impossible. How could you be here? Don't tell me. You're really Choi Lu Dao?" At that moment, Suing Han completely broke down, crawling backward on the ground, muttering impossible over and over. Every step he retreated, Choi Lu Dao advanced 1 step, deliberately crushing his courage bit by bit. Suing Han screamed in terror, "Don't come any closer. Why are you still alive? How can you still be alive?" Choi Lu Dao chuckled softly. "What? Am I not allowed to be here?" As he spoke, he slowly extended his hand. In the next second, Suing Han's throat was locked tight. Choi Lu Dao lifted him effortlessly, as if picking up a chick. "You remember what happened 5 years ago, don't you? You were the one who shoved me off that truck, and because of that push, I spent hundreds of years trapped in the abyss. Do you have any idea how I survived all those years?" Terror filled Suing Han's eyes. With just a bit more pressure, he would die on the spot. Choi Lu Dao's knuckles cracked loudly. The abyss was hell, and now it was Suing Han's turn to experience it. This bastard deserved everything coming to him. Back in school, he extorted Choi Lu Dao relentlessly, and the last time he had nearly killed him. Now, Choi Lu Dao was going to strip him of every last shred of dignity. With his current strength, Choi Lu Dao stood like an invincible being. It felt as if demons were whispering behind him, urging him to kill. That thought surfaced in his mind as well, but he quickly dismissed it. Killing Su Ying-han outright would be far too merciful. Everything Su Ying-han had done during those school years was pure torment. Humiliation, helplessness, dignity crushed again and again. Even after hundreds of years in the abyss, those memories never faded. So today, Choi Lu Dao intended to collect it all with interest. Su Ying-han had never left himself a way out. Every time, he ground Choi Liu Dao's dignity into dust and forced him to swallow it. The next moment, Choi Lu Dao released his grip and threw Su Ying-han to the ground. He wasn't going to kill him. He had a better idea. Gasping for air, Su Ying-han sucked in breath after breath. He truly believed he had almost died just now. Choi Lu Dao rubbed his brow. After so long in the abyss, he could feel himself edging toward becoming like the monsters, but he refused to cross that line. Still, the man in front of him was pure scum. He had bullied Choi Lu Dao in the past and had just tried to harm that girl. Who knew how many victims he had already left behind? So Choi Lu Dao made his decision that he would cripple Su Ying-han completely, leave him alive, but incapable of hurting anyone ever again. Su Ying-han, Choi Lu Dao said calmly, "You tried to kill me once. You failed that I won't kill you, but I won't let you walk away either." Su Ying-han stared at him in confusion, unable to comprehend what was coming next. Those 2 years at school had been hell for Choi Lu Dao, every single day. He even remembered Su Ying-han beating up a child just to steal a piece of bread. Choi Lu Dao spoke flatly, as if stating a fact. "We're even now. All you have to do is take 4 punches. Then I'll let you go." Su Ying-han clung to that like a lifeline, begging in panic, "If you hit me with that kind of strength, you'll kill me. The Hunter Association will come after you. Running into me today is your bad luck." Choi Lu Dao grabbed his collar and said coldly, "Don't worry about me. Your guilds can't touch me." Under Su Ying-han's stunned gaze, Choi Lu Dao threw his first punch. He didn't even use his full strength, but it was still far beyond what Su Ying-han could endure. With a heavy crash, Su Ying-han's body was smashed into the ground, stone and rubble collapsing beneath his chest. Then came the second punch. 2 consecutive blows left the 2 people nearby completely stunned. With a wet splatter, blood sprayed violently from Su Ying-han's mouth and nose. The third punch followed immediately, crashing down on him once more. "These punches," Choi Lu Dao said coldly, "are the interest you owe for what you did to me back in school." The words fell flat as the fist withdrew. Su Ying-han was already at his limit, barely able to remain conscious. But Choi Lu Dao forced him upright and said coldly, "I'm not done yet. Endure the last hit, and I'll let you go." Su Ying-han nearly broke down, begging Choi Lu Dao to just kill him. After 3 punches, his body was already ruined. Living held no meaning anymore. Choi Lu Dao ignored him completely and stomped down hard on his head. "Remember this," he said, voice icy. "This is the price for everything you did to me." With a thunderous impact, his foot ground down mercilessly. "That I keep my word. If you survive the 4th strike, I won't come after you again." After the relentless blows, Su Ying-han had gone completely blind, agony ripping through every nerve in his body. His limbs were destroyed, his vision gone. Left untreated, he wouldn't last much longer. But Choi Lu Dao had no intention of letting him die so easily. He turned to the 2 nearby and ordered them to take Su Ying-han to the hospital. If he dies, he warned, "You'll share his fate. Tell him to stay out of my sight. That if I see him again, I'll beat him again." With that, Choi Lu Dao pushed off the ground and vanished instantly. His priority now was reaching shelter number 6. He had to hurry. His parents could be in danger at any moment. A sharp sonic boom echoed through the air, his speed so extreme that no figure could be seen. Meanwhile, in the S-City buffer zone, 3 soldiers were chatting casually. Compared to this place, they'd rather be stationed on the wall than deal with monsters here. At that moment, a soldier who looked like an officer walked over and said coldly, "Don't be so damn timid." If a monster shows up, don't be the first to piss your pants. And one more thing, he added, stay alert at all times. We can't predict when monsters will appear. The man speaking was a mid-ranking officer, Lee Han-jun. One of the soldiers quickly reassured him. Don't worry, sir. This is a buffer zone. Monsters from X sector rarely show up here. As long as we stay alert, we'll be fine. But no one expected what happened next. The instant his words fell, a cold, slimy tentacle shot out and wrapped around the soldier who had just spoken. Before anyone could even react, their comrade was already dead. The creature before them was known as the Son of Kraken, a level 45 monster, das shell-type monster. The lieutenant shouted immediately, hold formation. Don't panic. If we break ranks, we're all dead. Gunfire erupted as bullets poured into the monster. But to their horror, every shot bounced harmlessly off its thick armor. Rage burned in the Son of Kraken's eyes as its tentacles swept over the soldiers below, as if choosing its next victim. Panic spread through the ranks. The monster's level was far too high. None of their weapons were effective. Staying meant certain death. With a thunderous roar, the creature launched itself into the air, leaving its original position in an instant. The massive shadow it cast was overwhelmingly oppressive. Seeing this, the lieutenant immediately ordered, scatter. Don't bunch up, don't give an opening. But the soldiers were already rattled, their legs trembling, movements slow and uncoordinated. The next second, the monster crashed down from above, striking again and claiming another life with a single claw. Just as the unit was on the verge of collapse, one brave soldier stepped forward and shouted, "Everyone get back." He was carrying a large pack of explosives, eyes blazing with resolve. "You damn bastard. I'm taking you with me." Without hesitation, he charged straight toward the tentacled monster, while his comrades provided covering fire. Under the suppressive barrage, the creature's movements slowed, and the soldier finally reached it. As he stood before the monster, searching desperately for a weak point to strike, no one could have imagined what happened next. The creature suddenly stopped attacking. Fear was clearly visible in its eyes. As a result, one soldier narrowly escaped death, yet confusion lingered in his mind. Why had the tentacled monster suddenly stopped attacking? The next second, everyone heard a distinct crack sound coming from the creature's body. The scene left them all stunned. What should have been a brutal slaughter had come to an abrupt halt. Every member of the squad was shaken. None of them could understand what was happening. Even the lieutenant looked terrified. He had no idea what had just occurred either. Fear was clearly visible in the monster's eyes. That only deepened the soldier's confusion. What exactly was it afraid of? The soldier holding the explosives clenched his teeth and decided to seize this fleeting chance if he could throw the charge into its eye. This might be their only way out. He took a deep breath and hurled the explosive toward the monster. A deafening blast erupted, and raging flames engulfed the creature's massive body. But moments later, their hearts sank once again. Even such a devastating explosion failed to deal fatal damage. The reason was simple. The monster had wrapped its thick tentacles tightly around its eyes. As long as its eyes remained intact, it would not die. The creature lumbered forward and stopped in front of a soldier, blood vessels bulging grotesquely in its exposed eye. The soldier who had thrown the explosive froze in disbelief. That level of power, and it was still unharmed? Impossible. The remaining soldiers had already scattered in panic, while the monster's tentacles locked onto the explosive-throwing soldier. At that very moment, a figure appeared out of nowhere. Choi Ludao stomped down, crushing the monster's eye in a single strike. The once dominant creature instantly became a lifeless corpse. The soldier stood there, completely dumbfounded. The lieutenant was equally stunned. Was that earlier cracking sound not the monster preparing an attack, but fear at his approach? Choi Ludao slowly straightened up, killing intent still lingering in his eyes. He hadn't expected to run into soldiers here, but it worked out. He could ask them how far shelter number 6 was. Even now, the lieutenant struggled to accept what he had witnessed. This man had killed a monster that survived a massive explosion with a single blow. His gaze sharpened instantly. That level of destructive power was unquestionably S rank. or perhaps even beyond it. The lieutenant made up his mind on the spot. No matter the cost, he had to uncover this man's true identity. But soon, the lieutenant received a system notification. Special ability, Recon, cannot be activated. Most likely, the level gap between him and the target was simply too great. His heart sank. This was the first time he had ever encountered something like this. I had been in this world for several hours by now, and I had grasped some of the most basic rules. Yet my own system still refused to activate. At the same time, the lieutenant's face had gone pale. Using that ability consumed enormous stamina and could even shave years off one's lifespan. I merely cast him a calm glance. In that brief moment earlier, I had clearly sensed someone watching me. Then I slowly walked toward the surviving soldier. There was something I needed to ask him. How far is shelter number 6 from here? The soldier hesitated, then answered honestly. About 20 kilometers north from here. But you'll have to pass through the X zone. That only deepened my confusion. What exactly was this so-called X zone? The soldier explained that this area was a military buffer zone designed to block monster waves. Monsters were deliberately concentrated here to minimize damage to the cities. Many hunters fought monsters there on a regular basis. As I listened, voices from nearby soldiers drifted over excitedly. Damn, today's drops are all rare tier. You only get black crystals when killing monsters in the abyss. Didn't expect real-world monsters to drop loot too. This is just like a game. Having just escaped the abyss, I had no clear understanding of my own strength. So I asked, how strong was that monster earlier, by your standards? Sweat immediately appeared on the soldier's forehead as he forced a bitter smile. A level 45 monster is insanely dangerous. Honestly, even a full regiment might not be able to take it down head-on. So to them, even the lowest tier monsters from the abyss were already enough to push humanity to the brink. I asked again, how many monsters above level 45 were there in the nest? The soldier's expression immediately darkened. Probably no more than 100. If monsters like that were everywhere, humanity would have gone extinct long ago. After getting the answers I wanted, I turned and prepared to leave. The soldier was left speechless. What kind of overwhelming strength did it take to act with such calm confidence? Just as I was about to go, the soldier hurried after me. Wait. I stopped and glanced back at him, signaling that as long as it wasn't unreasonable, I was willing to listen. He bowed deeply, his tone filled with sincerity that he hoped I would go to the X zone, that he knew how dangerous it was. But with a hunter as powerful as me, he believed countless lives could be saved. And I clearly remembered the shortest route to shelter number 6 passed straight through the X zone. I agreed without hesitation that I'll clear the X zone for you. The X zone wasn't part of my original objective, but since I had to pass through it anyway on the way to shelter number 6, I'd simply wipe out every monster I encountered, not just in the X zone. 10 minutes later, at the rear military camp near the front lines, the lieutenant who had collapsed from backlash slowly opened his eyes. The soldiers around him were instantly relieved. "Lieutenant, you're awake." The first thing he asked was, how long was I unconscious? The officer replied immediately, about 10 minutes. Thanks to the recovery item dropped by the monster, otherwise you might have been out much longer. The lieutenant ignored his own condition and asked instead, where did the hunter who saved us go? The soldier reported honestly, explaining everything about my departure toward the north. The lieutenant rubbed his temple instinctively. His head still throbbed as he muttered, "North." Then suddenly, something clicked. "Wait, what did you just say?" "Say that again." The soldier realized the issue as well and spoke carefully. "That mysterious hunter is heading for shelter number 6. The lieutenant's voice dropped instantly. "Did he mention passing through the X zone?" The soldier nodded. Judging by his expression, that man didn't seem to care about the monsters in the X zone at all. That was why he'd left without a second thought. After hearing the report, the lieutenant snapped his head around. Fury written all over his face, he was both angry and anxious. After finally encountering a hunter this powerful, that man might end up dead within minutes. "Contact Central Command immediately." The soldier was clearly startled. "Central Command? Sir, are you sure about that?" The lieutenant was burning with urgency. There were roughly 10 minutes left. Maybe, just maybe, it was still in time. In those few minutes, he had already checked his watch more times than he could count. Just then, another soldier rushed in. The emergency radio message has been sent. We should receive a response soon. Still, doubt lingered in the soldier's mind. Why Central Command? Was there something about this situation they hadn't been told? The lieutenant spoke slowly, his tone heavy and serious. This operation is different from all previous ones. The information involved is classified at the highest level. The X zone, which serves as the operational base this time, is not part of our standard defensive perimeter. That area is extremely dangerous because it has already been designated as a bombing zone. At the same time, inside Central Command, a woman reported rapidly, "We've received an emergency call from the BZZ sector." The overweight man seated in the Central Command chair spoke calmly, uttering only 2 words. "Patch it through." He was the Central Commander, Huang Tang, a level 58 fire mage. The moment the order was given, the woman acted without delay. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as multiple screens lit up. Moments later, the connection was established. Communication code WB. "This is Lieutenant Li Hanjun. I have an extremely urgent situation to report." The lieutenant then quickly explained everything that had happened. A mysterious, unidentified hunter had just entered the bombing zone, and he had no idea this operation even existed. Huang Taiying stared at the lieutenant with cold, indifferent eyes. "Oh, you're here just to report your own mistake. If that's all, then I'll have to consider disciplinary action." Faced with Huang Taiying's attitude, the lieutenant lowered his head instinctively. Even as a lieutenant, he was in no position to offend someone like Huang Taiying. Still, the lieutenant believed an emergency broadcast had to be issued to warn about the incoming bombardment. He insisted on this for one reason. The mysterious hunter was extremely powerful, and he didn't want him to die like this. The lieutenant's earlier words were transmitted verbatim. Those words clearly piqued Huang Taiying's interest. "You're saying he's a very powerful hunter?" Huang Taiying raised a critical question. "Then what level is he?" The lieutenant could only answer honestly. He had no idea what my level was, because no information had been detected at all. Hearing that, Huang Taiying almost laughed out loud. "So this is how you do your job, Lieutenant? A hunter of unknown level trespasses into a bombing zone, and you expect me to issue an emergency broadcast for him? Are you joking?" At that moment, the woman beside him spoke calmly. That hunter is probably already dead before the message even goes out. The two of them mocked the lieutenant back and forth. "You may not be very bright, but you do have talent for comedy. Running all the way here over something this trivial." After saying that, Huang Taiying glanced sideways at the woman next to him. "Looks like they haven't been trained to stand on their own yet. What kind of teacher are you anyway?" At this point, they sounded as if they were just making casual conversation. "I technically have no standing to interfere with your subordinates, but this one of yours is downright ridiculous. And one more thing." Huang Taiying's voice suddenly turned cold. "If I report to higher command that you've delayed the operation, then all responsibility will fall on you. Now, make your decision." In Park Soo-jin's eyes, facing such a terrifying, unknown force, was he really going to drag their own people down with it? She couldn't help but think the fat man beside her was a complete idiot, utterly unfit to command. If not for a bit of raw talent and the backing of powerful forces, someone like him would never have reached this position. Park Soo-jin then shifted her gaze to her subordinate. The lieutenant she had personally trained was now trying to save a total stranger, even if it meant abandoning the entire operation. She had worked with this lieutenant for years that he was anything but foolish. On the contrary, he was sharp and level-headed. For him to defend that unknown hunter so fiercely meant only one thing. That man was absurdly strong. The lieutenant didn't dare meet Park Soo-jin's eyes and lowered his head in silence. After a long moment of thought, Park Soo-jin finally made a compromise. She couldn't offend the fat man, but she had to give the lieutenant a chance. She spoke slowly, her tone calm, that "I believe you didn't intend to interfere with our plan. There must be a reason behind your actions. I'll give you a chance to convince me. Otherwise, the operation will proceed as planned, and I will personally send you to a military tribunal." The statement cut both ways, granting an opportunity while avoiding conflict with the powers behind the man. Yet the lieutenant found himself completely at a loss for words. He had known me for only a few minutes and had no concrete evidence to present. But if he ended up in military court, the outcome would be inevitable. Whatever those in power decided would become the truth. Park Soo-jin turned her head toward Hwang Tae-ying. This resolution should satisfy you, shouldn't it? Why not hear his explanation first? Hwang Tae-ying's expression darkened immediately. He was furious inside, yet didn't dare confront Park Soo-jin directly. After all, she was a genuine S-rank hunter. All that frustration was redirected at the lieutenant instead. Lieutenant Lee Han-jun, give me a reason I can accept right now. Otherwise, Park Soo-jin and I will send you straight to military court. Hearing this, the lieutenant knew there was no way out. Gritting his teeth, he finally revealed everything he had witnessed. That man killed a level 45 juvenile kraken with a single strike. Hearing the report from his subordinate, Park Soo-jin's eyes filled with shock. The claim was simply too outrageous. If what he said was true, then that man would be stronger than an A-rank hunter. Could he be a military S-rank hunter? If he truly belonged to the military, then they would have no choice but to save him. But before she could continue, Hwang Tae-ying cut her off. That's impossible. All S-rank personnel are currently assigned to active missions, and BZ hasn't confirmed any corresponding signal. He's most likely just a rogue hunter. Though shaken, Park Soo-jin remained rational. She pressed on. Then why didn't you know his level? Don't you possess an insight-type ability? This doesn't add up. Faced with the question, the lieutenant fell silent. He couldn't explain what had happened himself. All he knew was that after activating his skill, he couldn't read Choi Liudao's level at all. Not only did he lose part of his lifespan for nothing, but more importantly, he suffered backlash. Something that had never happened before. At that moment, Park Soo-jin was completely stunned. She knew the lieutenant had inspected other powerful hunters before. Even when it was difficult, he could still extract partial data. Yet this time, he couldn't retrieve a single fragment, which meant only one thing. The gap between them was immeasurable. The lieutenant spoke again, his tone firm. That man is incredibly strong. If I hadn't lost consciousness while trying to inspect him, I would never have let him enter the bombing zone. This time, even Hwang Tae-ying couldn't stay calm, that if you couldn't read any of his data, then his level is at least over. The entire command center fell into dead silence, so quiet that even a pin dropping would be audible. They needed time to process such an absurd conclusion. Hwang Tae-ying's fingers tapped restlessly against his chair. Situations like this were extremely rare. After a brief pause, he made his decision. I acknowledge that the hunter is strong, but that alone is not a reason to halt the operation. As his words fell, another figure stepped forward. Eastern Commander CO Young-ho, level 44, a mage-class specialist. He nodded in agreement. We cannot abandon our military duty based on such uncertainty. This operation involved 4 separate legions and thousands of soldiers. More than enough manpower to completely seal off both the bombing zone and the buffer zone. The original plan was simple. After the bombardment, troops stationed in the residential sector would clear out the scattered remnants. But if an emergency broadcast were issued, the monsters would react to the sound as well. That would cause all monsters to converge on a single location at once. If that happened, the entire region would collapse. Those were the lives of thousands of soldiers, trading one hunter's life for the lives of thousands. That was a decision he simply couldn't make. A trace of sorrow appeared on his face as he spoke. Even if he's an S-rank hunter, we cannot take that risk. I'm truly sorry. Hearing this conclusion, Lieutenant Lee Han-jun felt his heart sink. He couldn't bear the thought of such an exceptional hunter dying in the bombing zone. But the final authority rested with those above. All he could do now was wait for the verdict. Park Soo-jin wore the same expression of pain. Her lips parted slightly, yet no words followed. Both senior commanders had already rejected her stance. Pushing further would only worsen the situation. In the end, Park Soo-jin denied the lieutenant's request that we cannot sacrifice the efforts of so many for a single individual. This decision is final. There will be no objections. As her words faded, The video call in front of Lee Han-jun slowly disconnected. No matter how he called out, there was no response from the device. At that moment, everyone inside the tent lowered their heads. Lee Han-jun clenched the communicator so hard it creaked. Even the boss doesn't understand them. Does he really think we're fools? A nearby soldier placed a hand on his shoulder and spoke softly. "Lieutenant, you've done everything you could. Don't blame yourself." But Lee Han-jun's heart burned with frustration that he hated how little authority he had, hated that he'd recognized a true powerhouse, yet couldn't help at all. The nation was about to lose a hunter of extraordinary strength. His face was filled with reluctance, but once a decision had been made by those above, he had no right to defy it. Just then, one of the soldiers' eyes flickered, as if a spark of hope had appeared. A moment earlier, he had caught a glimpse of the key hanging from the lieutenant's belt. Without the slightest hesitation, the soldier reached out and snatched the key away. Realizing what had happened, the lieutenant stared at him in confusion. "What do you think you're doing? Why did you take my key?" In that instant, the soldier's plan became clear: to drive straight into the bombing zone and warn the S-rank hunter. There were 6 minutes left before the strike. Maybe, just maybe, it was still possible. He moved fast, yanking open the car door and igniting the engine, praying silently that he would make it in time. The lieutenant was furious. "You reckless brat. Do you want to end up in a court-martial too? Get back here. If anyone's going, it should be me." But the soldier didn't listen. He slammed the accelerator down, and the vehicle shot forward. Seeing this, another soldier panicked. "Lieutenant, issue an order to bring him back. If this keeps up, he'll never return." The lieutenant only pulled his cap lower and made no move to stop him. "If he's resolved to go, then let him go. Even if he didn't, I would have gone myself. All we can do now is pray that his choice won't betray anyone. You better come back alive, you damn fool." At the same time, the soldier was racing ahead at full speed. Less than 5 minutes remained before the bombing began. Driving alone might not be enough. What the young non-commissioned officer didn't know was that his actions at this very moment would change the world. The person he was about to save would one day become humanity's last hope. Desperately, the young soldier searched for any sign of Choi Lu-dao, his heart pounding as he wondered where the man had gone. He had taken the eastern route, the fastest possible path, and his accelerator was pressed all the way down. But if he still couldn't find Choi Lu-dao along the way, that could only mean one thing. The man was moving even faster than the car. Soon, the vehicle reached the outskirts of the southern zone. The soldier thought about turning on the loudspeaker. Choi Lu-dao might hear it, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Once the loudspeaker was activated, every monster would lock onto him instantly. Escape would be impossible. As he hesitated, precious seconds slipped away. Only 2 minutes remained before the indiscriminate attack began. Finally, the young soldier slowly reached for the loudspeaker. "It's fine, my life's worth nothing anyway. If I can save that hunter, it'll be more valuable than living." In the next moment, he stopped hesitating, gripping the loudspeaker tightly. He raised it to his mouth and tried to speak. But just as the words were about to come out, his voice began to tremble uncontrollably. No matter how hard he tried, nothing came out. Several seconds passed like that, the vehicle still racing forward. He felt like a disgrace to the military. Someone this afraid of death didn't deserve to wear the uniform. But was he really a coward? If he truly feared death, he never would have come here in the first place. Taking a deep breath, he gathered all his strength and shouted, "Mysterious hunter, I'm a soldier you saved earlier. I don't know if you're nearby, and I don't know if this message will even reach you. But if you can hear me, leave immediately. This entire area is about to be bombed. Our commander failed to stop an operation that was planned long ago, so I came here myself to warn you. If you stay, you will die in the blast." His voice echoed down the street, the message repeating again and again through the loudspeaker. When Choi Lu-dao heard it, he came to a halt. "So, it's him looking for me." He scanned his surroundings, understanding dawning on him. No wonder there aren't any hunters around. This place is about to be bombed. Choi Lu-dao clenched his fingers until they cracked. Ordinary monsters posed no threat to him, but he wasn't sure his body could withstand such extreme heat. After all, he knew little about the nation's advanced weapons. If they were confident their bombs could wipe out these monsters, his own body might not endure it either. Even if he survived, severe injuries were likely. In the next instant, Choi Liu-dao's figure flickered as he rushed toward the source of the sound. That young NCO came to a place this dangerous just to warn me. I won't let him die here. On the other side, the young officer was on the verge of tears. He had reached the central area, yet still couldn't find Choi Liu-dao. At 4 minutes and 59 seconds remaining, a swarm of monsters surged toward the source of the sound. At 4 minutes and 59.32 seconds, the monsters were already right in front of the soldier. Terror filled his face. It's over. My voice really did draw them in. At 4 minutes and 59.38, he yanked the steering wheel hard, needing to escape immediately. But at 4 minutes and 59.49, his right foot slammed down on the brake. He thought of Choi Liu-dao. The hunter was still out there, still inside the danger zone. If he drove away now, no one else would be left to warn him. Just as he prepared to keep driving while broadcasting the warning, a massive monster dropped from above and crashed down directly in front of him. The soldier was completely frozen in fear, utterly unaware that Choi Liu-dao was knocking on the window beside him. When he finally snapped out of it and saw Choi Liu-dao standing there calmly, he cried out, "Thank heavens! You're alive. The mysterious hunter is still alive." Choi Liu-dao asked what the soldier had meant earlier. Was this area really about to be bombed? But the soldier had no time to answer. The clock had reached 16 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. In one more second, the bombing would begin. With a sharp beep, the time rolled over to 1700 hours. Bombs roared through the air, launched from headquarters toward the bombing zone. In the blink of an eye, they rained down on the monsters and the surrounding city structures, turning the entire area into a sea of fire. When the bombs struck the buildings, the violent shockwaves hurled chunks of stone toward them. Choi Liu-dao stomped hard against the ground. In an instant, massive walls of stone erupted from the earth. The incoming debris was smashed down by Choi Liu-dao with a single hand, leaving the vehicle and the soldier behind him completely unharmed. At the same time, the command center was closely monitoring the situation. The X zone had been bombed simultaneously from 5 directions. The strike was complete. By all expectations, countless monsters should have been eliminated. Huang Taiyang spoke with a grave expression. Deploy drones. Assess how many monsters were neutralized and determine the movement of any survivors. What puzzled them was that the drones detected no signs of life at all. The command staff exchanged uneasy looks. Where had the monsters gone? Just seconds later, the woman monitoring the feed turned pale. No, they're still inside the bombing zone. Even worse, several monsters at the very center of the blast were completely unharmed. The sight stunned the command officers. That's impossible. Our weapons can't have failed. Monsters below level 50 shouldn't be able to withstand an attack like this. Park Soo-jin spoke calmly, switched to the drone visuals. Let's see exactly what's happening over there. The operator moved swiftly, synchronizing the drone footage onto the command center's main screen. Everyone stared at the display in silence. Soon, a shocking scene appeared. Each monster was covered by a red defensive barrier. No one could explain how such a barrier had formed. Under normal circumstances, monsters shouldn't possess abilities like this. Then they noticed something else. Standing on a monster's shoulder was a cloaked man with white hair. Understanding dawned on everyone. The barrier was most likely generated by that man. The next second, the screen went black. The drone had been destroyed. The command center immediately launched another drone, but the moment it reached the airspace above the monsters, it was locked on too. Seconds later, the second drone's feed was cut as well. The final image showed a monster casually crushing the drone into scrap with one hand. At that point, the command center completely lost contact with the X zone. All deployed drones had been destroyed. Park Soo-jin's expression darkened. They said this operation would be different, but what exactly was that just now? A bold and unsettling thought crossed her mind. Had these monsters developed intelligence enough to recognize our drones and counter our surveillance? The realization sent a jolt through the senior commander. If that was true, the situation was about to spiral out of control. He immediately issued an order. Begin evacuation from the residential zone. All troops withdraw at once. At the same time, Park Soo-jin gave her own command. All units fall back and hold the city walls. This is the final line. Those monsters must not break out of the X zone. But the next report from the receiver left everyone frozen in place. The monsters don't appear to be targeting civilians. They're moving toward the B2 zone, as if something there's drawing them in. Park Soo-jin immediately connected the dots. That was the direction the mysterious individual had gone. But why would the monsters head there as well? She gave an immediate order. Deploy every remaining drone to the B2 zone. We need to find out what's stopping the monsters' advance. By now, the B2 zone was no longer under bombardment, but the entire area had been reduced to rubble. Only after the explosions ceased did the soldier dare to step out of the vehicle. He could hardly believe he had survived something like that. Just as he was about to speak to Choi Lu-dao in excitement, he noticed the man staring straight ahead, utterly focused. Choi Lu-dao turned to him and said, "Leave now. If you're still alive, that means the monsters are alive too, and they're coming this way." At that moment, Choi Lu-dao's eyes flashed as he spotted an incoming attack. Just before it could hit the soldier, Choi Lu-dao shoved him to the ground. When they looked again, they realized it was a military drone. The soldier was stunned. Monsters attacking drones? That had never happened before. Choi Lu-dao told him not to rush his shock. There's a much bigger surprise waiting. Looking ahead, they saw hundreds of monsters advancing toward them at a steady pace. The soldier's heart sank. What was going on? Monsters had never gathered like this before. Worse still, their levels were terrifying. Level 50 across the board, with several level 60 monsters mixed in. Their leader had reached level 90. The sight broke the soldier. He collapsed to the ground. "We're done. There's no way we're getting out alive." Choi Lu-dao told him not to give up so easily. "If bombing couldn't kill them, then I still have other options. And my method is a lot simpler than bombing. Kill every single one of them." As the words fell, Choi Lu-dao leapt forward, charging straight ahead, while ordering the soldier to hide inside the jeep. Wherever his figure passed, monsters were crushed underfoot, killed with a single step. His true target was the highest level monster, and on its shoulder, there seemed to be a human silhouette standing there. Just as Choi Lu-dao closed in, a monster blocked his path and swung a massive iron hammer. To its disbelief, the hammer was stopped cold by Choi Lu-dao's bare hand. Choi Lu-dao sneered inwardly. Was an attack like this really supposed to hurt him? How laughable. In the next instant, the level 60 monster launched itself into the air. Choi Lu-dao slammed his hand downward, smashing the creature straight into the ground. Without slowing, he surged toward the figure standing on the monster's shoulder, his presence overwhelmingly oppressive. Seeing him charge in, the monster raised its shield, bracing for impact. But in Choi Lu-dao's eyes, that defense was meaningless. He slowly lifted his fist, power gathering. With a thunderous crash, the near level 60 monster was shattered by a single punch, its head blown apart. Blood and flesh exploded like mist, and Choi Lu-dao found himself standing directly before the figure. When he faced the man up close, his expression shifted. There was no aura at all. Had he not been seeing him with his own eyes, he might never have noticed the man's existence. For the first time, Choi Lu-dao felt genuine pressure. This opponent was on an entirely different level from the monsters. The man spoke in a crisp, calm voice. "I've finally been waiting for you." The next moment, the monster's shattered head began to regenerate. Within seconds, it returned to its original state, as if the blow had barely mattered. Even more shocking, the monster spoke. "Thief, give back what belongs to me." Choi Lu-dao stared at it in disbelief. "What are you talking about? When did I ever steal anything from you?" The man answered with a low, eerie laugh. Crimson energy surged within his palm. He declared that stealing his possession could only be repaid with death. In the next instant, black blades materialized behind Choi Lu-dao, weapon summoning, clearly the man's ability. With a sharp crack, Choi Lu-dao crushed one of the weapons barehanded. "This won't even scratch me. You can't break my defenses." His gaze locked onto the man. If this is all you've got, you're dead. He pointed at him. Take off your cloak. Let me see who you really are. At that moment, the massive monster lunged toward him. With a heavy smack, its enormous hand slammed down on Choi Liudao's shoulder, trying to crush him with brute force. Meanwhile, a drone hovered in the air, capturing every second. The man glanced at it indifferently. A human surveillance device? Watching me, are you? The instant the hand came down, Choi Liudao held it up effortlessly. Using that force, he lunged straight toward the man. If you really want me dead, try harder. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance. The cloaked man seemed utterly dismissive of Choi Liudao's attack. Choi Liudao sneered inwardly. After surviving 500 years in the abyss and becoming the strongest, he was being looked down on the very first day he returned to Earth. The next instant, just as he expected his strike to land, the man vanished, dissolving into a plume of smoke and slipping away. The weapon meant for him instead pierced straight into the monster's shoulder. The sight puzzled Choi Liudao. How had the man disappeared so easily? Moments later, the man's figure slowly reappeared at the monster's feet. Being stared at by such lowly humans, it's disgusting, he said coldly. The cloaked man raised his hand, streams of air swirling around his palm. It became clear he was controlling the monsters, ordering them to destroy the drones and eliminate any remaining human observers. At the same time, inside another ruined building, a man was remotely piloting a drone, watching the battle unfold. Shortly after, the drone feed went dark. It had been destroyed. Fortunately, the crucial footage had already been recorded. In the footage, he clearly saw Choi Liudao. Instinctively, he realized this man might be the reason the monsters had changed direction. Shock filled his eyes. Could this be the hunter who once faced a monster tied alone? Even his stance radiated overwhelming strength. Just as he was about to report this to the commander, a monster's hand silently appeared behind him. Strangely, the monster didn't attack. Instead, it reached out and closed the door, clearly setting up a trap. The soldier froze, panic flooding his mind. He hadn't expected to be discovered so quickly. At the same time, Choi Liudao turned his head and saw several octopus monsters climbing up the building. The cloaked man burst into laughter. My servants, kill them all. Hearing this, Choi Liudao recalled what the soldier had told him earlier. If a hunter powerful enough truly existed, countless lives could still be saved. That was why the soldier had risked everything to warn him, to give him a chance to save others. Meanwhile, the soldier's vehicle was trapped by fallen debris, unable to move. Seeing this, Choi Liudao made his decision. In the next second, he leapt down from above. To hunt the enemy, the leader had to fall first. Only then would the enemy lose the ability to slaughter innocent people. In the blink of an eye, Choi Liudao landed below. If he wanted to save as many lives as possible, he had to eliminate his enemies fast. At the same time, the giant monster launched its own attack toward Choi Liudao. Choi Liudao retreated instantly, narrowly avoiding the strike. But something felt off. After merging with the cloaked man, the monster's offensive power had clearly increased. While Choi Liudao's clone held the monster at bay, the mysterious man seized the opening and attacked him directly. Watching the figure close in, Choi Liudao remained calm. You're really persistent. Is my life that important to you? It was at that moment that he noticed something deeply unsettling. The man standing before him looked exactly like him. There was no time to dwell on it. The man instantly summoned a black longsword. That was bad news. The blade carried an overwhelmingly violent energy. Only then did the cloaked man speak. I will kill you, creature of the abyss, and reclaim everything that was taken from me. Without hesitation, he thrust the sword forward. But Choi Liudao had already read the attack path. As the blade came in, he threw his punch. A sharp crack rang out as his fist smashed into the man's wrist. The impact forced the man to drop the sword. In the same instant, Choi Liudao seized the weapon with his left hand and slashed immediately. There should have been no way to dodge it. Panic finally flickered across the man's face. With a heavy thud, the sword swept through, yet there was no sensation of piercing anything. The strike had missed again. The ability was bizarre. His body could be partially nullified, something even Choi Lu Dao had never encountered. He quickly examined the sword's energy. For some reason, it felt familiar. A second check confirmed it. The blade contained abyssal power. To his surprise, that discovery thrilled him. Finding such energy on Earth was unexpected, and the weapon itself was a valuable prize. The cloaked man roared in anger. "Do you do nothing but steal other people's weapons?" With a casual flick of his clawed hand, the sword in Choi Liu Dao's grasp disintegrated into ash. This was yet another application of abyssal power, one with many uses still undiscovered. Choi Liu Dao immediately judged that the fight would only escalate. First, he needed to get the soldier somewhere safe. He asked the soldier if he was afraid of heights. The soldier replied that he wasn't. Hearing that, Choi Liu Dao lifted the entire vehicle, warning him to hold on tight. The ride would be rough as he planned to send him back to headquarters. The cloaked man burst into arrogant laughter. "Idiot, I found your weakness. You want to protect him? Then I'll kill him first." Massive abyssal power gathered in his palm. The strong do not exist to protect the weak. They exist to become the strongest. As his hand came down, a devastating attack formed behind Choi Liu Dao. Choi Liu Dao realized it immediately. Running wouldn't help. The black sphere would chase him no matter what. He slowly set the vehicle back down. "In that case, I'll just crush you first." In the next instant, Choi Liu Dao leapt into the air, planning to shatter the black sphere before escorting the soldier away. All of his power gathered into his right fist. He struck the black sphere head-on, but felt no resistance at all. Looking closer, he realized the real sphere was hidden behind the black mist. At that moment, he heard the soldier scream below. His heart sank. It was a classic feint. He was stretched too thin, and the cloaked man's power had already seized control of the vehicle. Choi Liu Dao shouted for the soldier to jump out. Even broken bones were better than dying trapped inside. What he didn't know was that black vines had already filled the vehicle, as the cloaked man's voice whispered into the soldier's ear. "Don't be afraid, little lamb. I'll take you home." In the next instant, Choi Liu Dao witnessed a scene that filled him with pure rage. The once soft black vines hardened into sharp spikes, piercing straight through the vehicle, effectively sealing the soldier's fate inside. Choi Liu Dao rushed toward the wreckage, desperate to see if there was any chance the soldier had survived. The cloaked man looked delighted. "Are you angry now? Don't get so worked up. The angrier you get, the happier I am." With a sharp crack, Choi Liu Dao snapped the spikes apart with his bare hands. The soldier's corpse was already hanging in the air. The cloaked man sneered, "Take a good look." His body is still moving. It was a vile ability, necromancy, forcing dead bodies to move once more under external control. Like a victor savoring his triumph, the cloaked man boasted loudly, "I want to watch, with my own eyes, as everyone you care about dies right in front of you." That feeling is exquisite. What he didn't realize was that he had crossed an absolute line. From this moment on, it would be kill or be killed. Choi Liu Dao slowly spoke, his voice cold. "Do you really enjoy trampling on other people's dignity? It reminds me of being bullied back in school." Seeing the fury on Choi Liu Dao's face only excited the man further. "Come on, don't say something so obvious. That just ruins the fun." He launched his attack, countless jagged stones shooting from his palm. Choi Liu Dao didn't dodge. He let the blows strike him head-on. He knew they weren't lethal. On the surface, he remained calm, but inside, his rage was erupting like a volcano. In the next second, his figure vanished from sight. When he reappeared, he stood firmly on the ground, body coiled in an aggressive stance. Someone like you doesn't deserve to exist in this world. In the next second, Choi Liu Dao drew a deep breath and poured all his power into his fist. "If you got the guts, don't run. Fight me to the death. I'll see it through to the end." Almost immediately, the cloaked man vanished from the vehicle. Faced with an attack like that, only a fool would try to tank it. With a thunderous boom, Choi Liu Dao threw his punch. It felt as if the air itself was tearing apart, the shockwave alone obliterating every spike in its path. He clenched his teeth, eyes locked on his enemy. "Pray I don't get another opening, because when I do, I'll crush your head with one punch." He then caught the falling soldier. The man was already dead, but Choi Lu-dao refused to let his body be desecrated any further. The impact shook the ground, sending rubble flying in all directions. Even so, the soldier's corpse remained under the cloaked man's control. Guilt weighed heavily on Choi Lu-dao's chest. He had dragged this young soldier into a nightmare. He placed the body back into the vehicle and spoke softly, "Brother, I swear to the heavens, I'll avenge you." With that done, his gaze snapped back to the cloaked man. A life for a life. Blood would answer for blood. In the next instant, Choi Lu-dao exploded forward at full speed, appearing before his enemy in the blink of an eye. Yet strangely, his punch still failed to connect, as if the man's body couldn't be fully touched. The cloaked man suddenly appeared behind him, sneering, "You can't even control abyssal power, and you dare fight me? You're asking to die." Choi Lu-dao laughed coldly. "You finally took the bait." He spun around and smashed his fist straight into the man's face, caving it in. The cloaked man was sent flying backward. He crashed into the ground with a heavy thud. Choi Lu-dao shook the blood from his hand. "You're not even on my level. Why act so arrogant in front of me?" Desperate, the cloaked man ordered the monsters to block Choi Lu-dao, buying himself time to escape. Shocked, he demanded, "How did you even manage to hurt me?" Choi Lu-dao flashed in front of him again. "People grow. You're dying here today for my brother." True fear finally took hold. Against an opponent who adapted this fast, he had no chance if the fight continued. He leapt onto a monster's shoulder, preparing to flee. Choi Lu-dao followed, rising to the same height. "You kill my brother and think you can run?" But the cloaked man was craftier than expected. As Choi Lu-dao rose, he dropped sharply downward instead. Terror flooded his mind. This enemy was far more dangerous than he'd imagined. Choi Lu-dao's eyes burned with killing intent. "You might escape my grasp, but let's see how you dodge this." He slammed a fist downward, unleashing a colossal surge of energy. This time, he used true abyssal power. "Today you die." The blow shattered the monster's body. To his surprise, the fragments began to reconnect, but Choi Lu-dao wouldn't allow it. He grabbed the torn wounds with both hands, then ripped the abyssal power straight out. The monster stared at him in terror. How did you do this?" Without abyssal power, its body ignited and burned away. Choi Lu-dao dropped down and continued the chase. "You're not escaping today." Driven into a corner, the cloaked man unleashed his ultimate move, Shadow Convergence. Instantly, abyssal power was siphoned from every surrounding monster and drawn into him. A terrifying aura erupted from his body. He hurled half of that power toward Choi Lu-dao, the impact so fierce it forced Choi Lu-dao to squint. At that moment, Choi Lu-dao thought he saw a figure flash past his eyes. Seconds later, everything went quiet again, and the cloaked man was gone without a trace. Choi Lu-dao stood there in disbelief. Had that terrifying ability been used just to escape? He tore off his shredded clothes and tossed them aside. The clothes were ruined, but his parents' photos were still intact. Opening the vehicle, he saw the soldier's lifeless body. The effects of necromancy had clearly ended. Choi Lu-dao removed the pendant from the soldier's neck. He then dug a grave and buried the soldier there. This death weighed heavily on him. It was because of him, at the very least, he would bring something back in the soldier's stead. Thinking of the cloaked man who looked exactly like him, anger surged again. This was far from over. After absorbing so many shadows, the man could strike at any time. Especially his words about watching the people Choi Lu-dao cared about die. Those words wouldn't leave his mind. He needed to reach the shelter as fast as possible. He couldn't let the enemy arrive first. With a powerful push, Choi Lu-dao left the ruins behind. His body shot forward like lightning, heading straight for shelter number 6. Unbeknownst to him, everything that had just happened had been captured by a surviving drone on the ground. 15 minutes later, Park Soo-jin arrived at the site and ordered a full sweep of the area. Nothing was to be overlooked. After reviewing the drone footage, a soldier turned pale in shock. The footage showed that every monster in the area had been eliminated. Even Park Soo-jin, an S-rank hunter, felt a chill run down her spine. She ordered her team to analyze the drone data and compile a complete report. The battlefield was covered in signs of intense combat. The mysterious hunter mentioned by Lee Han-jun had not only survived the bombardment, he had wiped out the entire monster nest. Even S-rank hunters might not be capable of that. Just then, her team made another discovery, a drone on the ground, completely intact. The storage unit is in perfect condition. We can extract the data right now, a soldier reported. 1 minute later, Park Soo-jin was watching the footage. She reviewed every second, missing nothing. She saw the soldier who had sent the warning, and beside him, a white-haired man. That had to be the mysterious hunter. Meanwhile, other soldiers were collecting the monster's drops. Soon, one of them found an item glowing with purple light, accompanied by basic data. It was a white vial labeled as a special energy potion, permanently enhancing the user's power. Nearby was a white sword, categorized as an unidentified ancient weapon. Most intriguing of all was a golden box. Its information couldn't be read at all. As the soldier reached for the items, someone behind him asked, "Find anything?" Startled, he hurriedly hugged the items to his chest and claimed he hadn't found a thing. Before he could react, a figure dropped down from above, letting out a low, eerie laugh. The soldier froze in fear, worried his actions had been exposed. The newcomer glanced at the golden box and smirked. "If I'm not mistaken, this dropped from a strike leader. An item with unreadable data. That means it's extremely rare." The man's lips curled into a faint smile. Keeping items obtained by a unit for yourself is a crime. You know what that means, right? The soldier's heart sank instantly. So he really was going to report him. If that happened, he was finished. Left with no choice, the soldier gritted his teeth and proposed a split. "If you report me, you won't get any of these items either." The man seemed quite pleased with the offer and immediately set his sights on the golden box. The soldier shook his head. "Impossible. That box clearly has a chance to drop a legendary item. There's no way I'm just handing it over." The man grabbed his shoulder, his voice turning cold. "You don't have a choice. I pick first, or I report you right now." Filled with resentment, the soldier could only comply and hand over the golden box. The moment the man held it, a sinister smile appeared on his face. At last, the puppet relic. Meanwhile, after a long sprint, Choi Ludao finally arrived at shelter number 6. He scanned the area carefully. There were no signs of recent monster attacks. The defenses were tight, with heavy weapons deployed in the rear. The people coming and going all seemed normal, confirming his suspicion that true powerhouses were guarding this shelter. He moved toward the entrance, preparing to enter. As he walked, his thoughts returned to the cloaked man from earlier. He hadn't sensed even the slightest trace of his presence. In fact, he hadn't sensed any powerful aura at all. Yet without someone protecting this place, it would have been destroyed long ago. Just then, a man wearing a straw hat appeared directly in front of him. Choi Ludao paused, puzzled. Did this guy not watch where he was going? But it quickly became clear the man had come specifically for him. "Your blood is unusually dense. You're from outside, aren't you?" Choi Ludao replied calmly, "Yeah. What do you want?" "I'm busy." The man burst into laughter. "In that case, how about we make a deal?" He pulled out a thick wad of cash. "I'd like to buy some information about the outside world from you." Choi Ludao nodded. "That's fine. If I know it, I'll tell you." Just as the man looked pleased, Choi Ludao added, "But before that, I have a question. You're calling me sir like this, yet you claim to be a monk. That makes you a fake." The man froze for a moment, then laughed loudly. "Sharp eye, this outfit is just a hobby." Choi Ludao pointed at his eyes. "And covering your eyes, is that a hobby too?" The man's expression flickered with panic. What a troublesome guy, he thought. He removed the cloth over his eyes, revealing them tightly shut, claiming he suffered from an eye condition and couldn't open them. But that excuse didn't fool Choi Ludao. He could clearly sense a terrifying power hidden within those eyes. This man was far more dangerous than he appeared. He had his reasons for hiding his strength. This shelter truly was hiding a wolf in sheep's clothing. Choi Ludao didn't pursue it further and instead asked what information the man wanted. This time, it was the man's turn to ask questions. He had been inside the city for a long time and wanted to know what was happening outside, especially with armed troops gathering near the city walls. It was clearly a state of readiness. He was certain ordinary civilians hadn't noticed any of it. But the explosions outside had caught his attention, and he wanted to know exactly what was going on. After hearing him out, Choi Lu-dao paused and thought. This man was clearly more dangerous than he looked. It would be safer to hide his own strength for now. He burst into laughter. Honestly, I don't really know what happened out there. I only heard a huge explosion coming from the southwest. It scared me so badly, I dropped my letters and had to use my shirt as a makeshift map. The man looked startled, replying with a casual "I see," but inwardly he was alert. This guy was hiding his power too. Still, he handed over the payment. Just knowing the direction is enough. You've helped me a lot. With that, he headed off alone toward the vague direction, his intentions unclear. Choi Lu-dao had no idea how many fighters like that were inside the city, which meant he couldn't afford to draw attention to himself. More importantly, the fact that someone as suspicious as him could move freely suggested that powerful figures were stationed here. Or perhaps humanity was facing a common enemy, causing people to lower their guard toward one another. Night fell quickly. Choi Lu-dao entered a clothing store and bought a new outfit. Using the monk's money, he picked out a trench coat. It fit surprisingly well and gave him a strange sense of familiarity, like someone he'd seen before, a man named Chang Xiaoyu. Still, finding his parents was the priority. Looking around, he realized the city was far larger than he'd imagined. It seemed he had no choice but to use the most old-fashioned method, asking around and hoping for luck. He gently tapped a woman on the shoulder. "Excuse me, have you seen the couple in this photo?" To his surprise, her face went pale with shock. She waved her hands frantically, insisting she'd never seen them, then hurried away. The reaction left him speechless. It was way too intense, like he'd shown her something cursed. At that moment, a man cursing loudly approached from behind, his voice drawing attention. Unexpectedly, he stopped right in front of Choi Lu-dao and sneered. "What, hitting on women in the middle of the night? That's pathetic." In an instant, Choi Lu-dao appeared right before him, his gaze sharp and cold. "Watch your mouth." The man broke into a sweat the moment their eyes met. "You don't look like a local." Pointing at the photo, he scoffed. "What era are you living in, carrying photos around at night to flirt?" Choi Lu-dao held up the photo. "Have you seen these two?" The man rolled his eyes. "Do you flirt with everyone you meet?" His voice suddenly cut off, fear flooding his face. "How do you have their photo?" He stared hard at Choi Lu-dao. "What's your relationship with them?" Choi Lu-dao's heart leapt. At last, he'd found a lead. He immediately said they were his parents. The man compared his face to the child in the photo and frowned. They looked nothing alike. Furious, he rolled up his sleeves. "Are you messing with me?" At the same time, a truck loaded with monsters drove straight down the street. The truck driver panicked and slammed on the brakes, but Choi Lu-dao ignored it completely. The next second, the truck crashed straight into him. Yet he didn't move an inch. The man was utterly stunned. Had he just hit a human or a ghost? Choi Lu-dao casually brushed the dust off his shoulder. "Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. Could you repeat that?" All traces of arrogance vanished from the man's face. He instantly turned into a meek, well-behaved citizen. He even pretended to recognize him. "Oh, it's you. Long time no see." He quickly pointed down a road. "Just keep going that way. You'll find your home. I even held you when you were a kid, remember?" Choi Lu-dao didn't argue and simply followed the direction. "Thanks. Once I find my parents, I'll make it worth your while." The man waved his hands nervously. "No need, no need." But the moment Choi Lu-dao turned away, the man bolted in the opposite direction. "This is bad. I need to gather everyone." A trace of doubt surfaced in Choi Lu-dao's mind. Even a lowlife knew his family's address. Something felt off. Then again, his father had always treated everyone kindly. It made sense people remembered him well. His mother was the same, gentle and warm to neighbors. People like them were often taken advantage of. Choi Lu-dao clenched his fist. His parents were good people. He wasn't. And now that he was back, no one would ever bully them again. After walking a bit farther, he stopped at a corner. This had to be the place. To his surprise, the area was deserted, and a long wall stood before him. Did his parents really live here? Judging by the gate alone, they seemed to be doing fairly well. He raised his hand and knocked. Joy flooded his face when he heard a familiar voice from inside, one he hadn't heard in 500 years. His father was speaking. "You're home early today?" The door opened. His father stepped out, only to see a white-haired man standing there. Choi Liudao's expression shifted. His father had changed more than he'd expected. Confusion flashed across the man's face. Then anger. "Who are you? Why are you blocking my way when I'm welcoming my wife home?" He stared for a long time, but couldn't recognize him. 500 years changed everything. Choi Liudao swallowed hard. "Dad, it's me." "Liudao." His father froze, then snapped. "Do you take me for a fool? My son doesn't have white hair." After that, Choi Liudao was led into the main hall by his father. Once they sat down, neither of them spoke a word. Soon, his mother entered from outside, carrying a tray of tea. Only after she sat down did his father finally speak. "I still can't believe it. You're completely different from the son we once knew. That's why we need to run some tests." Choi Liudao chuckled softly. "Tests? What kind of tests are you talking about, Dad?" His father explained bluntly that Liudao had changed far too much. Only secrets known between father and son could prove his identity. As he spoke, his father cast a subtle glance toward the ceiling. If Liudao said anything suspicious, the hidden operatives above would deal with him immediately. None of this escaped Choi Liudao's notice. His father was still on full alert. Still, the level of security reassured him. It meant his father had done well for himself over the years. What came next were secrets shared only between father and son. Secrets that would make the guards wish they hadn't heard them. The first round began. Every weekend, Choi Liudao said casually, "You attend cooking classes with a household support group." His father froze, eyes wide with shock. How could he possibly know that? Even the leader of the hidden operatives nearly lost composure. Their boss taking cooking lessons? But that wasn't all. You also sneak off to ballet class every week. The operative on the ceiling nearly broke down on the spot, wondering if he'd survive the day. His father shot a warning glare upward, as if saying, "Think anything weird, and you're dead." Locked by that stare, the operative felt as though an invisible blade was pressed against his throat. An awkward silence filled the room. Even so, his father remained cautious. "Knowing that still doesn't prove you're my son." Choi Liudao laughed. "Then let me tell you something only our family knows." His father's eyes flickered with surprise. "Go on." Choi Liudao lowered his voice. "I will, but are you sure you want others listening to what comes next?" Choi Liudao could clearly see sweat forming on his father's forehead. Even his voice began to falter. "Go ahead, say it." Choi Liudao turned and pointed at the two blades displayed nearby. "Dad, that Japanese sword of yours is just a replica." The moment the word replica was spoken, the hidden operative's sweat poured down like rain. A flicker of panic crossed his father's eyes, but he still tried to deny it. "Don't joke around. What proof do you have?" Choi Liudao stood up and picked up one of the swords. "The proof is right here. There's a bite mark on the hilt, left by my older brother." The operative's heart sank. He knew he was finished. He had just heard his leader's greatest secret. He remembered hearing it before. When their leader was bound, he fought by biting onto this sword, killing 38 enemies with it. That bite mark was left from that battle. With a sharp shing, Choi Liudao drew the blade. At the same time, the operative tensed, ready to strike at any moment. He thought Liudao was about to attack their boss. Instead, Choi Liudao calmly pressed the blade against his own palm. If I remember correctly, he said, "This sword is retractable." "See? I wasn't wrong." Suddenly, his father cursed from behind, "You little bastard." The next moment, his father threw himself into Liudao's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "We thought you were dead. We searched for you for so many years." He cried like a child, not out of weakness, but overwhelming joy. Their son had finally come home. Since Liudao disappeared, his parents had never stopped looking for him. His father searched every landmark, chased every lead, and somehow rose to the top without realizing it. And now this powerful leader was crying messily, even snapping, "Get that guy down from the ceiling." The operative was utterly shaken. He had never seen the boss like this. The man once hailed as a war god, crying. Memories flooded his mind. He realized he hadn't seen his boss shed a single tear in years. No one would believe this scene, even if he told them. Suddenly, A sense of dread washed over him, sweat pouring down his face. This place felt more terrifying than hell. He just wanted to escape and pray they wouldn't silence him. Without warning, a hand burst through the ceiling and grabbed his leg. Choi Ludao looked up at him with a gentle yet dangerous smile. "Don't rush. My dad wants a word. Do us a favor and come down." Soon, all four of them were seated at the table. His father stared at the operative and spoke calmly. "Out of all my men, you have the loosest mouth. You know what needs to be done." At that moment, Choi Ludao calmly picked up where his father left off. "If you leak this information," he said flatly, "you'll bear the consequences yourself." He and his father spoke almost at the exact same time. The head of the Shadow Division was practically scared out of his mind. He swore he wouldn't say a single word, begging them to spare him. At this point, even a blind man could tell. The two of them looked like they were carved from the same mold. If they weren't father and son, what else could they be? Compared to the threats from the father and son, the mother's voice sounded like an angel descending beside his ear. "All right, you two have had your fun. Stop threatening him." The Shadow Division leader was deeply moved. It really did seem like the madam was the only gentle one in this family. But even as she smiled, there was something chilling about her expression that said, "You mustn't say a single word. Otherwise, even I won't be able to save your life." He nodded frantically, vowing to forget everything the moment he stepped outside, as if none of this had ever happened. The father shot the mother an annoyed look. "I'm just glad he didn't bring up my farting or snoring in my sleep." She smiled back lightly. "Honey, why are you exposing your own embarrassing secrets?" Watching this warm scene, Choi Ludao couldn't help but smile. This was the life he had longed for during 500 years in the abyss, and it had finally arrived. He was back. His family was still alive. From this moment on, there was only one thing left for him to do: protect them. Just then, Choi Ludao sharply sensed movement outside the house. The next second, there was a loud crash as the front door was yanked open by a man with an afro. Several vicious-looking lackeys stood behind him as he shouted, "Boss, there's a white-haired kid looking for you. He's strong. He even wrecked a truck." But the moment he saw inside the house, he froze. Choi Ludao was sitting there quietly with his parents. Choi Ludao glanced back slightly and asked in a calm voice, "The white-haired kid you mentioned, were you talking about me?" The man's eyes widened in shock. After staring for a long while, he realized the face before him was identical to the white-haired boy from his memory. His face turned pale as he blurted out, "Boss, it's him. This kid's terrifying. When a truck hit him, the truck was the one that got destroyed." He then forced himself to say, "Even if you're strong, there are more of us. You can't beat us." Yet even as he spoke, his legs were shaking uncontrollably. In contrast, Choi Ludao remained perfectly calm, as if these people didn't even register in his eyes. The afro-haired man continued shouting, trying to sound tough. "What are you planning to do to our boss? Are you from the Tiger Roar gang?" Before he could finish, Choi Ludao reached out and grabbed his trembling knee. "Seriously," he said lightly, "don't let your legs shake when you talk." The moment Choi Ludao stood up, an overwhelming pressure burst from his gaze, sending chills straight down the man's spine. Choi Ludao lightly patted the man on the shoulder, instinctively sensing that he was probably one of his father's subordinates. With a casual smile, he asked, "Dad, why don't you introduce your people to me?" His father burst out laughing and waved his hand. "Relax, everyone. This is my son, Choi Ludao. He's been missing for 5 years and finally came back today." As for his current level, his voice abruptly stopped. Only then did he realize something. He had no idea what his son's level actually was. As a father, that was undeniably a failure. But with all his subordinates present, he couldn't show it. That would be far too embarrassing. At that moment, Choi Ludao calmly picked up the conversation, saying something that nearly stunned everyone in the room. "I don't have what you call a system. So honestly, I don't know what level I'm at either." The lackey behind them looked utterly shocked. He had survived in the Fallen Zones for 5 years. And without a system, how had he even stayed alive? Even the afro-haired man was left speechless. If you don't have a system, then no matter how you train, you shouldn't be able to break past level 10. Choi Ludao chuckled softly. "I don't know what abilities your system gives you, but tell me, Can level 10 really withstand getting hit head-on by a truck? That doesn't sound very realistic. The spear-wielding man behind the afro whispered, "Didn't you just say he was strong? How is he some newbie without a system?" The afro-haired man felt awkward. And maybe I was mistaken. He said that out loud, but deep down he knew Choi Lu Dao was anything but ordinary. What puzzled him was why someone like that didn't have a system at all. Having just returned from the abyss and knowing nothing about this so-called system, Choi Lu Dao asked the afro-haired man to use it to check his level. The request froze the man's expression completely. After a moment, he explained, "You might not know this yet. If you don't have a system, you won't have any basic information displayed. Even with a system, you can only see a monster's level and related data. You can't see other people's levels. Unless you have a reconnaissance skill, you can't view anyone else's information. And that kind of skill is extremely rare." He paused. "But your father happens to have it." Choi Lu Dao turned his gaze toward his father. "In that case, Dad, could you take a look for me?" He was also curious whether his father's ability could reveal anything related to the abyss. Moments later, everyone watched as his father pointed at empty air. They couldn't see the system interface themselves, so all they could do was stand there. Choi Lu Dao glanced at his mother. "Aren't you going to check too?" She shook her head gently. "I just want to stay by your side. Everything I needed to know, I already know." The instant she finished speaking, his father suddenly cried out, What is going on here?" On his system panel were nothing but question marks. There was no information about Choi Lu Dao at all. He tried again and again, but the result never changed. Faced with this, two possibilities came to his mind. The first was that Choi Lu Dao truly had no system. The second, however, sent a chill through him. That Choi Liu Dao's level was so far above his own that even he couldn't view it. The room fell dead silent. Their boss was already like a god of war, and his son was even stronger. It was simply unbelievable. According to his father's judgment, the system interface couldn't display Choi Liu Dao's abilities or personal data, yet it could still show his name. That made the second possibility far more likely. More importantly, his son had survived on his own for 5 full years. If he were truly a rookie, he would have died long ago and never made it back here. To his father, that meant only one thing. Choi Liu Dao's level had to be far higher than his own. When his father asked what he had gone through during those years, fragments of painful memories flashed through Choi Liu Dao's mind, and his expression darkened instantly. Sensing the change, his mother quickly stepped in. "You really don't know when to stop. He's back safely now. Isn't that something we should be happy about?" In her heart, she had always believed her son was strong enough to overcome any hardship that came his way. She knew all too well that he must have endured countless trials to return. Being able to see him standing there, unharmed, was already more than enough. Hearing her words, Choi Liu Dao's eyes grew moist. For 500 years, he had missed his mother more than anything. Scenes from the abyss flashed through his mind. But after everything he had suffered, this reunion alone made it all worthwhile. His tears finally slipped free beyond his control. He softly reassured his mother, telling her not to worry. From now on, he wouldn't run off anymore. He would stay by their side, and he would protect them. In his arms, his mother was already sobbing uncontrollably, tears pouring down like a waterfall. Seeing the scene, his father's eyes reddened as well. He then waved his hand and chased all his subordinates out. "All of you, get out of here. Don't get in the way of a mother and son reuniting." He gave strict orders that no one was to disturb him today, no matter what happened. That evening, he planned to cook a proper feast to welcome his son home. After everyone left, only Choi Lu Dao and his mother remained in the room, quietly talking together. Suddenly, something occurred to him. "Mom, why haven't I seen my brother? I didn't see him when I came in." A faint sense of unease rose in his chest. His mother told him not to overthink it. "Your brother is alive and well. He's just been serving in the military and doesn't come home much. Now that you're back, should I call him and have him come home for dinner?" Looking at his brother on the phone screen, Choi Lu Dao felt a surge of complicated emotions. According to his mother, his brother had been fighting on the front lines all these years, almost as if he were seeking revenge on Choi Liu Dao's behalf. It had been a long time since he last saw him. Choi Yodao's older brother had always stood in front of him, protecting him. From childhood to now, he had never once been bullied when his brother was around. After talking with his mother for a long while, Choi Lu-dao finally voiced the question that had been bothering him. "Mom, do you and Dad hold a very high status here?" His mother nodded calmly. Her standing here was anything but ordinary. She had awakened the complete inheritance of a priest, which was why everyone was willing to follow her instructions. On top of that, she was a healer with multiple restorative abilities, capable of providing powerful battlefield support. Most importantly, she also possessed the ability of prophecy. Hearing this, Choi Lu-dao looked genuinely shocked. "If you're a priest, then can you tell what's wrong with me?" His mother shook her head, explaining that she couldn't see through it. She didn't have a corresponding insight ability. Choi Lu-dao pressed on. "Then how did you know I would come back? You even left clothes and a letter for me in my room." She reached out and gently touched his face, laughing. "You silly boy, didn't I just tell you? I have the power of prophecy. I saw a future where you returned." She burst into laughter. "I told your father long ago that you would come back. He refused to believe it, ran around searching for you day and night, and ended up becoming the boss of this place instead." Her expression soon turned serious. A prophet cannot prophesize about themselves, or they will suffer backlash. Moreover, prophetic abilities come with many restrictions and can only be used again once specific conditions are met. At the same time, a group of uninvited guests arrived outside the house. The man in the lead had a long scar across his face. Seeing them, Choi Yodao's father stepped forward with his subordinates and greeted him warmly. "Welcome back, my old friend." The man was none other than Han Taishan, vice president of the United Guild. Noticing his gloomy expression, his father frowned. "What's with that face? Did something happen?" He leaned in closer and asked in a low voice, "What exactly is going on?" "I had people quietly look into a few things. What did they find?" Han Taishan replied in a deep voice, "Just as you suspected, Tiger Roar does have ties to the military." "Boss, shouldn't we start taking action?" "As usual, we handed over the monster corpses to the military," he continued. "But that guy with the notebook deliberately nitpicked everything, claiming the damage was too severe and that they couldn't accept them. They always find excuses, only giving us a fraction of the points, while reporting the full amount to their superiors. After checking everything, all the unfair treatment traces back to Tiger Roar." Hearing this, his father finally understood. "So that's how it is. This lines up with what I suspected. If even Tiger Roar, supposedly neutral, was pulling tricks like this behind the scenes, then the situation was truly dangerous. Still, they couldn't just sit back and let themselves be trampled. That would affect the town's future as a whole." His father, however, didn't seem overly concerned. To him, the worst-case scenario was simply having a fight. What mattered right now was taking his brothers out to eat first. In the next instant, his father spread his hand, and a sword materialized in his palm. "After we eat," he said, "I'll personally pay Tiger Roar a visit and settle this once and for all." A murderous glint flashed in his eyes. They had to make it clear, the United Guild was not some soft lamb that anyone could squeeze at will. Hearing the name Tiger Roar Guild, Choi Liudao's gaze turned cold as well. Thanks to that black fragment, all of his abilities were pushed into an overloaded state. It wasn't just his strength that had increased. His senses had become far sharper too. Now, he could even catch sounds coming from far away. It seemed the bandits he had run into before were indeed connected to Tiger Roar. Choi Lu-dao turned toward his father, a trace of concern in his eyes. His father was about to negotiate with them personally, yet Choi Lu-dao didn't truly know how strong his father was anymore. In the next moment, he pushed the door open and blocked his father's path, speaking casually. "You're going out to eat, right? I'm hungry too. How about I come with you? After we eat, I'll go with you to the Tiger Roar Guild," he added calmly. "I want to see who it is that thinks they can push us around." The room fell silent. Everyone present sensed that this might be the moment when the young man's true strength would finally be revealed. Han Taishan, standing nearby, was filled with doubt. The white-haired youth before him gave off an oppressive presence, yet Han Taishan had never seen him in the city before. His father quickly stepped in to explain. "This is my son, Choi Lu Dao. He went missing 5 years ago. Unfortunately, he never awakened a system. Han Taishan was utterly shocked. Surviving outside for 5 years without a system? How had he possibly managed that? He exchanged a scrutinizing look with Choi Lu Dao. To him, the logic was simple. No system meant an ordinary person. Someone without a system wouldn't last more than 3 days outside. Even with elite physical traits and top-tier survival skills, survival would only be barely possible. But once things escalated into real combat, lacking any professional abilities would turn such a person into nothing more than a burden. Han Taishan kept those thoughts to himself and instead burst into laughter. That's actually good news. Still, you just come back. You shouldn't take part in this operation. Get some proper rest. Choi Lu Dao's father agreed, telling him to stay home and keep his mother company. His mother chuckled softly. Listen to your father. I haven't even shown you around our home yet. Choi Lu Dao reflected quietly. It seemed they all saw him as nothing more than a normal person. But that was only natural. In the eyes of anyone with a system, someone without one was just ordinary. Thinking it through, he realized he still didn't fully understand the shelter. If monsters like the ones he imagined truly existed, hiding his real strength would be the best way to keep his parents out of danger. He nodded in agreement. In that case, let the uncles go with Dad. The lackey behind them, however, looked visibly disappointed, cursing inwardly. He had missed the chance to see Choi Lu Dao show his true power, and it was all Han Taishan's fault for talking too much. Soon, his father and the others set off in force toward the Tiger Roar Guild, determined to demand justice. Watching their figures fade into the distance, Choi Lu Dao still felt uneasy. He had only just returned home, and the last thing he wanted was for his father to be put in danger. His mother told him not to worry. Your father is very strong. Not letting you go this time is for your own good. Just stay home and relax. In truth, Choi Lu Dao felt the same way. After finally being reunited, neither of them wanted the other to face danger again. She gently ruffled his hair. Trust me, your father really is strong. Every month, I use my foresight to check on his safety. Each time, I can see him clearly for the entire month ahead, so there's nothing to worry about. Choi Lu Dao raised a hand to stop her. I'm not a kid anymore. You're making me embarrassed. Then he added, Tiger Roar is already tied to the military. That just means Dad will clash with them more and more from now on. Turning to his mother, he asked, what's the overall situation in the shelter right now? Why is our relationship with Tiger Roar so bad? His mother explained that after Judgment Day, a hunter guild formed by awakened individuals joined forces with the military to manage the shelters. His father later founded the United Guild, cooperating with the military at Shelter Number 6 in hopes of finding him. The United Guild grew so quickly because people were deeply moved by his father's vow to help everyone find their missing families. The guild handled order, resource gathering, and monster suppression, while the military dealt with rifts and towers. Because his father was kind-hearted, he refused to send his people into rifts. That was how his parents had maintained peace for the past 4 years, avoiding unnecessary danger while slowly strengthening their forces. A few months ago, however, the Tiger Roar Guild from Shelter Number 4 established a branch here. From that moment on, conflicts with his father's side never stopped. Choi Lu Dao asked in confusion, if the military helps manage the shelter, why don't they step in to stop the conflict? The answer was simple. Enemies were growing stronger, and the military could no longer handle them alone. Tiger Roar existed specifically to conquer towers, and their overwhelming power left the military no choice but to rely on them. Intelligence related to tower assaults was too valuable to ignore. On top of that, Tiger Roar possessed an awakened one chosen by the Tower God. That awakened one was named Ezra, the one chosen by the Tower God. He was Tiger Roar's true trump card, terrifyingly powerful. Hearing the words Tower God, Choi Lu Dao frowned. It was the first time he had heard that a godlike being existed within the towers. The Tower God was the ruler of the towers. To humanity, its power was nearly divine. Passing its trial allowed one to become an Ezra and receive power bestowed by a god. Outside the towers, they were called messengers of the gods. Inside, they became guardians. Tiger Roar, now, possessed many Ezras. With the desolate power each one carried, they swiftly absorbed all neighboring guilds. His father's guild was beloved by the locals, yet had never conquered a single tower. They were the only guild in the alliance, struggling on without an Ezra. The situation felt dire to Choi Lu Dao, yet something still felt off. If people truly loved the United Guild, why did its style resemble that of an underworld organization? His mother laughed softly. That's just a little personal quirk of mine. Only then did Choi Lu Dao realize it. His mother actually admired old-school gangster culture, and that influence had quietly shaped the guild. She waved it off. What does it matter? As long as everyone's happy, that's enough. His mother nudged Choi Lu Dao in the back, telling him to take a shower and get some proper rest. Anything else could wait until tomorrow. If you need help scrubbing your back, just call me, she added, but there was no way he could bring himself to ask for that. After she left, Choi Lu Dao stood alone in the room, his mind unable to settle. He quietly activated his perception to confirm her location. A trace of abyssal power spread outward from his body. In his senses, his mother had indeed left the area. Earlier, he had agreed to stay home simply because he hadn't realized how serious the situation truly was. Now, there was no way he could feel at ease without going after his father. He yanked the window open. If he left now, he might still catch up. With a sharp whoosh, Choi Lu Dao leapt into the air, vanishing from the spot in an instant. At that exact moment, his mother caught sight of his departing figure from inside the house. Her expression turned complicated as she murmured, "Everyone told you to rest, and you still wouldn't listen, just like when you were little." Meanwhile, his father was leading his men toward the Tiger Roar Guild, killing intent rolling off him in waves. His blade burst from its sheath as he shouted coldly, "I'm standing right at your guild's doorstep. Isn't it time you showed yourself?" Before the words even faded, he thrust his sword forward. Though the blade remained in his hand, the blade aura shot ahead, cleaving straight toward the guild hall. In an instant, the entire building was split clean in two. Killing intent surged from his father. Today, Tiger Roar will give me an explanation. Watching from afar, Choi Lu Dao was stunned. His mother hadn't exaggerated at all. His father was truly terrifyingly strong. 10 minutes earlier, his father had already set out for the Tiger Roar Guild. Choi Lu Dao followed soon after. From a higher vantage point, he scanned for his father's group. With everything outside the central district shrouded in darkness, finding them was surprisingly easy. But suddenly, his vision doubled, and a wave of dizziness hit him. Something was wrong. Ever since being enhanced by the Abyss fragment, he shouldn't even be able to catch a cold. So dizziness made no sense at all. Then, a familiar voice echoed beside him. "Abyss Seed, you can't escape." Choi Lu Dao spun around, searching for the cloaked man, but the bastard had hidden his presence completely. He couldn't sense him at all. Rage surged in his chest. That man had actually followed him all the way to shelter number 6. Just as the anger peaked, a stronger wave of vertigo washed over him. The voice sounded again. "I won't let you run, Abyss Seed. Your soul has already been locked onto. Anything I've marked can never hide from my sight." The next moment, Choi Lu Dao realized there was a head right beside his shoulder. In the next instant, Choi Lu Dao threw a punch, shattering the cloaked man's head. But there was no impact at all. His fist passed straight through it. This clearly wasn't the man's true body. The cloaked man burst into laughter. "Your soul has already been marked. There's no way you'll ever escape my grasp." When Choi Lu Dao examined the head more closely, he realized it resembled a code-based projection, endlessly repeating the same lines along with that infuriating expression. His sudden movement drew attention from nearby. "Hey, what are you doing up there this late? Are you trying to jump?" Several powerful flashlights shone straight at him, the harsh glare forcing him to squint. In the next moment, Choi Lu Dao leapt away, vanishing from the spot. While sprinting through the air, he noticed that the face from earlier had disappeared once again. He immediately stopped, preparing to reassess the situation. If that thing was still nearby, it posed a serious threat. Yet to his surprise, the instant he halted, the cloaked man reappeared, repeating the exact same words as before. That led Choi Lu Dao to a theory. Had it vanished earlier because of the intense flashlight beams? With that thought, he decided to test it. He moved directly beneath a street lamp and raised his arm into the light. In his mind, he quickly outlined the pattern. If he stayed in darkness for more than 7 seconds, the soul mark would activate. And if he lost his composure, it might trigger as well. Annoying didn't even begin to describe it. With that thought, Choi Lu-dao pressed down on the soul mark with his other hand, deliberately remaining in darkness for 7 full seconds. Just as he expected, that damned head appeared again. This time, however, his expression mirrored it perfectly, and he even repeated its words in the same tone. "Your soul has been marked by me. You won't escape, Abyss Seed." A passerby saw the scene and immediately cursed him out as a cringe-inducing teen. Clearly, that face was visible to him alone. The moment he stepped back into the light, a piercing noise rang through his mind, but before long, the mark faded away. At the same time, the disgusting head vanished. There was no doubt about it. The mark had been planted on him long ago. The reason nothing happened while he was at home was likely because sunlight and indoor lighting kept it suppressed. The logic checked out, but it also made the situation far more troublesome. How was he supposed to deal with that face? The cloaked man had placed the soul mark on him for one reason only: to track his location at any time, which meant an ambush could come at any moment. Choi Lu-dao couldn't afford to relax, not against an enemy this dangerous. His top priority now was finding his father. As for that punchable face, he'd ignore it as long as he could. Whenever light touched his body, the face disappeared. His theory was sound. Under illumination, it simply couldn't manifest. If his mother was right, and the United Guild had already lost its value to the military, then his father was likely in mortal danger. At that moment, Choi Lu-dao recalled the monk he had encountered earlier that day. He didn't know how many powerhouses were hidden within the shelter, but with the military allied to Tiger Roar, they would never just sit quietly. They were likely planning to wipe out the United Guild entirely. If that was the case, then even if it meant slaughtering everyone in his way, he would protect his parents. Anyone who threatened their lives would have to die. Choi Lu-dao looked slightly dejected. For a brief moment, he wished he could return to the peaceful world of the past, where his family could live safely together every day. Soon, he arrived at his father's location, the front of Tiger Roar Guild's headquarters, where the group had already formed up. Instead of stepping forward, he hid behind a pillar, quietly watching what unfolded ahead. He wanted to see how his father would handle negotiations with Tiger Roar. His father had once told him that violence should always be the final option in any conflict. Back then, he only half understood. He had been young. He didn't even know how to fight. He wasn't sure whether his father would actually come to blows with the guild, but if things escalated, he would have to step in. Just then, a ripple of noise spread through the crowd. Was the negotiation about to begin? Turning his head, he saw 2 members up front wearing barely restrained smiles, their excitement obvious. In the next instant, his father raised his hand and made a drawing motion. The pressure radiating from him was terrifying. Someone nearby whispered that last time, his father had left a nearly 20-meter-long wound on an opponent. The moment the blade left its sheath, Lu-dao felt a devastating force explode outward from the weapon. The warmth his father showed at home was completely gone. What remained was pure killing intent and overwhelming dominance. Han Taishan watched in silence, expression unchanged, while the man behind him looked thrilled. Shock finally surfaced on Liu Dao's face. His mother hadn't exaggerated. His father was truly powerful. Maybe his worries had been unnecessary. Then his father slowly sheathed the blade, and the guild building split diagonally in 2. At that moment, his father spoke slowly, his voice cold and sharp. "It's been a long time since I last moved. Did you really think we were already dead? You even dared to bully our people so openly." That show of force immediately drew cheers from his subordinates. Choi Lu-dao lightly tapped one of his father's men and asked quietly, "Is the boss always like this? This aggressive?" The man looked at him with pure admiration. "You don't know? The boss is famous for one thing. He's always the first one charging into a fight." Lu-dao was genuinely surprised and blurted out, "Didn't he always say violence should be the last resort?" The man nodded. The boss had indeed said that before, but that was his old belief. Back then, he still trusted the military to handle things. Now, that trust was gone. After that, things became almost ironic. Every time their people entered a military-controlled zone, small clashes would inevitably break out. The constant friction eventually changed the boss's mindset. Using fists became the fastest solution. If you couldn't win a fight, then talking was meaningless anyway. Beat them first, then talk. That was the boss's new philosophy, and a rule they all followed. Hearing this, Lu Dao couldn't help but feel conflicted. From his perspective, his father still seemed somewhat reckless. For what he'd observed earlier, weren't true powerhouses supposed to avoid unnecessary trouble? Watching his father's back, he began to question himself. Had he misunderstood his father all along? Or did possessing that level of power really grant the freedom to act without restraint? Perhaps he had been deceived by the monk's outward calm. Maybe that man also wielded terrifying strength, enough to dominate wherever he went. It seemed Lu Dao still didn't fully understand this world. Meanwhile, atop another building, a figure quietly appeared. He stared down at the scene below, where several helicopters were processing a monster's corpse. The monk slowly removed his blindfold. A green glow flashed across his eyes. His skill, keen eye, was now active. What he saw was a torn-apart level. 90 boss, yet there were no burn marks or damage from heavy weapons. This was the very monster Lu Dao had killed earlier that day. The monk covered his eyes again and sighed softly. So many hidden powerhouses in this world, it's truly unsettling. We'll have to be careful, very, very careful. On the other side, white smoke still curled up from inside the building his father had cleaved in half. His father and his men stood there in silence, waiting for the one in charge of the Tiger Roar Guild to come out and negotiate. Before long, a group emerged from within the ruins. The man at the front was already cursing, calling his father a damn bastard. He shouted angrily, "Do you really think things are still the same as when the shelter was first built?" Those words seemed to trigger an unpleasant memory. His father's expression darkened as he shot back coldly. "Of course things have changed. People like you crawled out of the shadows." As he spoke, his father adjusted his grip on the blade, killing intent seeping into his voice. "I should have killed you back then and spared myself the trouble." The man showed no fear at all and sneered instead. "Then why don't you do it now? What, are you scared?" Veins bulged across his father's forehead as his voice dropped dangerously low. "You think I can't kill you right now?" The next instant, his blade was drawn. Brilliant arcs of lightning danced wildly along the steel. The sight made Park Taitan shudder. He was terrified that the next strike would end his life on the spot. Panic churned inside him. "I've pushed him far enough, so why aren't they coming out yet? Is this still not enough?" Gritting his teeth, Park Taitan hurled another insult. "You coward who doesn't even dare swing your sword properly. Go on, cut me down if you can. Let's see if you got the guts." His voice rose to a shrill pitch. "A weakling like you isn't even fit to carry the Tiger Roar Guild's shoes." In the next moment, his father finally snapped and charged forward, blade in hand. At the same time, Park Taitan instantly deployed his shield and invoked divine power, forcibly blocking the strike. In that instant, the shadowed man and Park Taitan shared the exact same thought. "You finally took the bait." A man stepped out from behind them. No one moved. He was a level 63 assassin, his voice filled with fury. "You've got some nerve, starting a fight inside the shelter." The Union Guild members were stunned. This was military personnel. Why were they here? Had the military decided to side with the Tiger Roar Guild? Choi Lu Dao glanced at the level 63 assassin and immediately understood. This man was backing Tiger Roar. None of this was accidental. He shifted his focus to the upper floors, sensing numerous hidden presences. "This situation is bad. My father is at a disadvantage." The assassin's appearance was no coincidence. The trap had been laid long before his father arrived. The fight was forcibly halted, but the standoff only grew heavier. His father knew it too. They had walked straight into a setup. What he hadn't expected was the military abandoning the Union Guild so openly. The assassin smiled. According to Temporary Shelter Safety Act, Article 15, dueling within the shelter is prohibited. Violators face detention of 15 days or more. In severe cases, execution. Will you comply? His father finally saw the plan clearly. Provoke him first, arrest him the moment he retaliated. A perfectly calculated trap. The calm confidence on the assassin's face was unsettling. Did he really not fear exposure for corruption? His father knew one thing. If arrested, he might never walk free again. He cannot be taken in. Otherwise, Tiger Roar would seize everything: territory, assets, even his family. Why would the military go this far? Was there an internal power struggle? Whatever the truth was, his father knew better than to admit guilt. He laughed loudly. You must be mistaken. There was no fight between us. Without evidence, I won't admit to any crime. Don't you agree, officer? The officer laughed. Evidence? See that sword mark on the wall? You made it yourself. Isn't that proof enough? His father played dumb. You must be joking. I was just testing the building's structural integrity. If it's unsafe, repairs are necessary. The officer stepped closer. You still don't get it. This place answers to me. If I say it's evidence, then it is. Report me if you want. Suddenly, over 100 hunters emerged, guns raised. The moment you stepped in, you lost. Surrender, or I give the order to fire. His father felt the danger instantly. He might survive, but his men wouldn't. Furious shouts erupted behind him. Fight to the death. His father remained grim. This was a deadlock created by military interference. He raised his hand, signaling calm. Everyone was already within firing range. The level 63 assassin chuckled. Are you really going to gamble your brother's lives against mine? I don't mind playing high stakes, but can you afford the price? Click. His father's blade snapped free of its sheath, igniting the tension in an instant. A full-scale clash was seconds away. Even so, facing a level 63 assassin, his father clearly felt the pressure. His gaze shifted sharply to Park Tae-tan. Take him hostage, and this situation might still be salvaged. Decision made, his father struck without hesitation. Both the assassin and Park Tae-tan straightened, eyes lighting up. So he's finally making a move. Park Tae-tan immediately activated sword shield defense. He couldn't afford to be the weakest link. As an agent, his defensive skill differed from other classes. It analyzed incoming attacks in far greater detail. At this distance, he was confident he could block the strike. Sword shield defense could only guard against bladed attacks, but precisely because of that, it allowed him to perform far beyond his actual level when facing a sword. Park Tae-tan had tested it before. This shield had once blocked a level 69 warrior's full power blow to a level 65 warrior like his father didn't scare him at all. He was already picturing the blade shattering the moment it hit his shield. Park Tae-tan roared, "If you got the guts, break this shield." At the same time, military personnel pressed in on his father. Will you surrender quietly or drag every one of your companions into a cell with you? His father's expression darkened. This was the moment of choice. Behind him, Han Taishan urged him in a low voice. No matter what, he must not surrender. Even death was better than kneeling. His father was torn as well. He didn't want his brothers to pay the price for his decision. His hand lingered on the hilt for a brief moment. Then he made his choice and handed the blade over. That single action was a clear declaration. He was giving up the fight. Han Taishan's pupil shrank. He never expected his leader to choose this path. The military personnel, however, smiled in satisfaction. Seems you've made the wise decision. Fury flashed across the Union Guild members' faces. Being mocked so openly, how could they not be enraged? What no one realized was that Han Taishan had already prepared himself to fight. There was a signal known only between him and Shui Jinhan. Raising the sword meant preparation. Letting go meant the battle truly began. In the next instant, a terrifying aura erupted from Han Taishan as mana surged violently through his body. And no one else knew about this signal, which meant they would inevitably lower their guard, just long enough for a decisive strike. At that moment, his father threw the blade straight to the ground. That was the true signal. The fight had begun. Park Tae-tan froze, unable to understand why Shui Jinhan had let go of his weapon. There was no time to think. Shui Jinhan charged straight at him. forcing Park Tae-dan to push his shield to maximum output. With that shield in place, Park Tae-dan felt completely at ease that IT was enchanted specifically to block sword strikes, something he believed no one could break. Then his father raised his hand once more, a phantom blade forming in midair. "If you're that confident your shield can stop me," he said calmly, "then let's put it to the test." Park Tae-dan wasn't panicking at all. This shield couldn't even be broken by a level 69 warrior. What made him think he stood a chance? At that moment, Han Taishan finally unleashed the mana he had been holding back. Rubble from the ground slowly lifted into the air under his control. The purpose was clear: to coat the blade with stone. They knew exactly how Park Tae-dan's defense worked. Sword shield defense only blocked sword strikes. In the next instant, his father slashed forward. Park Tae-dan's shield shattered on the spot. The impact felt like a hammer smashing into his body, sending his organs churning violently. So damn cunning. It wasn't a sword strike. It was a hammer blow. No sword shield could withstand that. His father didn't let up, clearly intending to finish him off. Just then, the assassin burst into laughter. "I know exactly what you're after." He spun around and slashed at his father with a dagger. "I can touch you, but you can't touch me. Lay a finger on me, and you're dead." But Han Taishan would never let that happen. He clenched his hand, launching instant long-range support. A stone wall erupted from the ground, blocking the assassin's arm and stopping the blade cold. The assassin frowned. Those floating stones were severely restricting his movement. On the other side, Park Tae-dan completely lost his composure. Seeing Chui Jinhan in full killing mode, he shouted orders for his men to open fire without mercy. The soldiers pulled their triggers relentlessly, bullets pouring out in a storm. At the same time, Han Taishan struck again. With 2 fingers raised, he shouted, "You think you can hurt my father in front of me?" Another stone wall rose instantly, cutting off Park Tae-dan's retreat and blocking the incoming gunfire. Han Taishan had single-handedly created the perfect execution zone for Chui Jinhan. His father was overjoyed. If he could capture Park Tae-dan and use his life as leverage, everyone could withdraw safely. Just as the father's hand was about to reach Park Tae-dan, Park Tae-dan vanished like a shadow, and the father grabbed nothing but air. The father was utterly shaken. It was the first time he had ever seen such an eerie ability. The shadow wielder let out a harsh, grating laugh. "Your ally's stone prison trapped me in the shadows. In the moment Park Tae-dan's shield shattered, I left a residual magic mark on him. That completed the condition to unlock an assassin skill, Shadow Trace. If you don't get it, think of the yellow flashes flying thunder god technique. Now that the hostage is gone, are you still not surrendering?" The officer grinned arrogantly and waved a hand, ordering everyone to move in and seize the father. This was completely beyond the father's expectations, and this single misstep could push the situation to the brink of collapse. Yet Han Taishan looked downright terrified, staring fixedly in a certain direction, his eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. Why was that person here? Even the soldiers present were visibly shaken. The assassin failed to understand their reaction and snapped impatiently. "What's there to be shocked about? Move now." At that very moment, a low voice spoke from behind him. "You just said move. Move against who?" "Against my father." The killing intent in that voice was overwhelming. The assassin froze. Shock surged through him. Someone had slipped behind him without making a sound. He cast a quick glance at the newcomer. Though he didn't know who it was, he could be certain of one thing. The person before him was an enemy. Then I'll have to use that move. With that, the assassin slowly reached toward the vial at his waist. Park Tae-dan saw the motion and his voice trembled. That's the lethal poison prepared to take down a level 90 boss. That item belonged to them. When did this officer steal it? In the next instant, the assassin erupted with all his strength and tore free. At the same time, Choi Liudao's killing intent surged like a tide, abyssal power wrapping around his body. The assassin moved at blinding speed, hurling 3 daggers at Choi Liudao the instant he turned, each aimed straight for a vital point. Seeing this, The father's expression changed drastically as he shouted, "Lu Dao, get out of here now!" At that moment, Park Tae-tan was cursing the officer endlessly in his mind. The man's actions could drag everyone down with him, because no one present could withstand the poison's corrosion, not even himself. Soon, the toxic fumes began spreading rapidly through the air. In the blink of an eye, 4 or 5 soldiers were poisoned to death, collapsing to the ground. Though Park Tae-tan never wanted things to escalate this far, at least the poison could eliminate the allies of Shelter Number 6. He had to escape this toxic zone immediately. However, just as that thought crossed his mind, a massive hand reached out and grabbed toward them. The 2 figures trying to flee were yanked back instantly, seized like helpless chicks, and rendered completely immobile. A storm of shock erupted in Park Tae-tan's mind. Why can he still move? That poison is lethal enough to kill a level 90 boss. Even the assassin officer showed pure terror. For someone to move freely under such poison, there was only one possible explanation. A monster, one that even level 90 poison could not kill. Held tightly in Choi Liudao's grasp, both men shared the same realization. They had provoked someone they never should have crossed. Every attack the assassin had just launched at Choi Liudao was now clenched between his teeth. With a casual motion, he spat, and the broken dagger hilts clattered onto the ground. To Choi Liudao, it was almost laughable. The assassin had actually believed such crude attacks could kill him. It was pure fantasy. He spoke coldly, ordering both men to stay still. "Move again, and I'll send you straight to hell. This ends today."